Chapter 2012. How do you know that I am an SSS class ghoul? Noticing that Dustless revealed his identity, Yoshimura asked in confusion. At the same time, his scarlet eyes were still jumping with anger, and the Kagun behind him was like a poisonous snake that came out of the cave, staring at Dustless. Well, hearing this, Dustless was speechless for a while. After all, he came from another world and knew too many secrets. After thinking for a few seconds, Dustless said, "There is no wall in the world that doesn't have a crack. I know very well who you have worked with before. A long time ago when the store manager was young, she joined a special organization, V, and as a cleaner, she helped the organization clean up obstacles. Whether it was ghouls or humans, they were all the targets that the store manager eliminated. From then on, Fengzu and Gongshan lived a stable life." Are you also a member of that organization? The store manager's cheeks changed dramatically when he heard the words. He was full of vigilance, and his whole face was tight. As an SSS class ghoul, Yoshimura could only be a cleaner of the V organization, which was enough to see the horror of the organization, and its strength was far stronger than the Aijai tree. This is not. I just know some of their secrets. Dustless shook his head like a rattledrum, and immediately said bluntly, "To some extent, I am the enemy of V, we might as well cooperate." The store manager's eyes were shining, and he suddenly became interested. How to cooperate? The store manager Yoshimura knew that the people of the V organization would never easily let him go, and they would come to his door one day. It didn't matter if he died, but the store manager didn't want to implicate his daughter, Yoshimura Ite, who was the current boss of the Aijai tree, the one-eyed king. It's very simple, you will retire, and this, 20th district, will be my territory in the future. Dustless smiled and said, "You can find a place to live, and you will have no worries from now on." Hearing this, the store manager's mouth twitched a few times. Was Dustless cooperating? It was obviously a robbery. "You bastard, pay attention to your tone." Kirishima Tuka suddenly became angry, her eyes turned scarlet, and she stared at Dustless with a bad face. "If you dare to say that again, I promise that you will be beheaded." "Hey, you are really hot. Be careful that you can't get married, Miss Kirishima." For the threat of the girl, Dustless just smiled. "You want to challenge me with your current strength? I can barely be 1,000 times stronger. Are you looking down on me?" Hearing this, Kirishima Tuka's back swept out magma-like Kagun, burning like a flame, quite spectacular. "That's enough. Dong Xiang. What he said is true. Stop it." Taking a look at Dong Xiang, the shop manager Yoshimura Karma said with a rare command. It was too easy for a ghoul who was evaluated as SSS class by CCG to kill Kirishima Tuka, and she would be killed in seconds even if she had no chance to fight back. Ouch! At the same time, the ferocious biting sound suddenly came, and attracted the attention of the three people for a moment. Everyone's eyes were cast at the same time, and they all frowned. Kaneki Ken, this kid can persist? What if he is hungry? Dustless touched his chin, and the corner of his mouth had a hint of playfulness and expectation. Why does he have the smell of rice? Sniffing gently with her nose, Kirishima Tuka's tone was confused, and then she suddenly remembered something and clenched her fists. Did he swallow rice? This is not the case, things are like this. Dustless shook his head and told the store manager and Kirishima Tuka in detail that Amami Rise attacked him, as well as being ambushed by Janamai Hiro and Kuto Fuku. He also told the current Kaneki Ken that he had been transformed into a one-eyed ghoul. Is he the college student whose organs were modified in the news? Kirishima Tuka looked at Kaneki Ken with a complicated look, and her clenched fists finally loosened. Toka, you go to prepare enough bodies, and then burn all the unusable ones. Remember to be careful, don't let the people of CCG find out that you died here. The store manager, Yoshimura Karma, told Kirishima Tuka seriously. It was not far from the antique coffee shop, and CCG's nose had always been very sensitive. What is your plan? The store manager looked at Dustless helplessly. If he let this guy go, sooner or later he will attract a large number of white pigeons, and the peace area he created will collapse. I don't have any ambition, I just believe in one principle: the land under my feet is mine. Dustless said. His calm tone was obviously not joking. You don't have ambition? Hearing this, the store manager, Yoshimura Karma, was speechless. The land under your feet is yours. This treaty is too overbearing. Doesn't it mean that if one day he goes to CCG's base camp, then CCG's site will be Dustless's? You can join my antique coffee shop, temporarily. After thinking about it, the store manager only thought of such a way to restrain Dustless. The movement made by the SSS class ghoul was definitely not a small matter. If Dustless disappeared, the white pigeons may run to other areas to investigate Dustless's traces. But if they continue to make trouble, the entire 20th district will be unlucky. In a sense, the antique coffee shop that was the leader of the 20th district will inevitably be implicated by Dustless. The store manager did not want to help Dustless. From another point of view, the store manager was helping himself. Chapter 2013. And him. The store manager Yoshimura looked at Kaneki Ken, and the meaning was self-evident. You also join my antiques, otherwise you will be found by the white pigeons sooner or later, and the end is even more miserable. Staring at Kaneki Ken's one eye, the store manager could only sigh at the twists and turns of fate. For humans, becoming a ghoul was a nightmare, and now there was a unique Kaku eye, and it was impossible to stay out of it in the future. Him. Kirishima took a frown and seemed to be unwilling. As for Dustless, he had an indifferent look. It was impossible for the store manager to not know about the legend of the one eye, and he would never let Kaneki Ken leave. And Dustless's brows suddenly frowned, and the coldness on his face flashed away. Is there an intruder? At the same time, the store manager also found a slight movement. He was also an SSS-level ghoul, and his strength was naturally not comparable to Kirishima Tuka's. It's just a small fish. After a moment of silence, Dustless's 3-tomo Sharingan recovered its calmness, and he was unmoved. No matter who it is, people who see our real appearance must die. The store manager Yoshimura's eyes jumped with an unknown killing intent. Although he seemed to be more charitable, in the final analysis, he was an unkillable person who stepped on countless corpses. So many scumbags are wandering in my hunting ground. Do they put me in their eyes? Lazy, but with a few murderous tone. Then a young man with glasses and orange hair slowly came, and the 2 eyes were obvious. Your hunting ground? When he heard the words, Dustless glanced at him faintly, and the 3-tomo Sharingan that had disappeared appeared again. Boy, you say it again, I didn't hear it clearly. Whose hunting ground is it? Of course. Being stared at by Dustless's scarlet eyes, the man felt that his soul was trembling, and his throat seemed to be stuck by an invisible big hand, and it was difficult to continue to speak. What a strange eye. Is this really the Kaku eye of a ghoul? The store manager frowned and stared at the strange eyes intently. After feeling the darkness that came out of it, he could not help but change his face slightly, and he also felt extremely uncomfortable oppression. No wonder CCG's evaluation of him is SSS-level ghoul. The store manager suddenly realized that CCG seemed to look down on Dustless. Jean, when did this place become your hunting ground? Kirishima Tuka obviously knew this young man with orange hair, and her eyes flashed with hostility. This person was Nishio Jean. Don't think I don't know that gluttony is dead. Nishio's tone, she said coldly. So now the 20th district is his territory. What an arrogant little brat. After hearing the words, Dustless slowly walked out of the dark corner. With the help of the vague moonlight, Nishio Jean saw the real appearance of Dustless. That gluttony was sanctioned by me. Since you said it's your territory, come on, let me see if you have more value than her. Dustless hooked his finger, and his mouth was full of evil intentions. It's you. After seeing the real face of Dustless, Nishio Jin's face suddenly flashed with panic. In the past few days, Nishio Jin was fortunate to see the scene of Dustless slaughtering the white pigeons. That unparalleled strength, no matter what level of investigator, it was just a hand and a knife, the slaughter process was less than a second. Cough, I still have something to do, goodbye. Looking at Dustless in fear, Nishio Jin was like a deflated ball, and she quickly fled desperately. Really, am I so terrible? Dustless was speechless. He didn't seem to bully Nishio Jin. Why was this girl more afraid than seeing the devil? Was it so exaggerated? Damn stinky pervert. After looking back and seeing that Dustless did not chase, Nishio Jin was relieved. She didn't know that Nishio Jin's heart had already called Dustless a super devil. Whether in the face of ghouls or humans, Dustless could always maintain a one-sided crushing momentum. Store manager, you don't need to kill him? Kirishima Tuka stared at Nishio-jin unkindly. Her face was full of cold breath. Tuka, the essence of our antique coffee shop, is to provide a safe shelter for the ghouls in the 20th district. It's okay to let that guy leave. Since he knows how to escape, it means that he is a smart person. He knows what to say and what should never be said. The store manager Yoshimura Kozen's face was indifferent, and then he left alone. This old man. Dustless couldn't help but look at Yoshimura Kozen speechlessly. To be honest, he really admired this calm SSS class ghoul. It was really shocking that a ghoul could be so kind. But it was precisely his kindness that led to his defeat in the future. All creatures, the survival of the fittest, this was the iron principle that would never change. The so-called peace and stability were completely controlled by the strong. Why can the store manager maintain the stability and peace in the 20th district? It was because he was an SSS class ghoul, and defeated all the ghoul organizations in the 20th district with overwhelming strength, which created a shelter dedicated to providing food for ghouls. So, if he was just an ordinary ghoul, would anyone listen to him? The answer was naturally no. However, the feeling of being under the same roof with a group of monsters who eat people is really a new experience. Seeing Kirishima Tuka collecting the corpses, Dustless's face was indescribably strange. Of course, Dustless's interested eyes also had an indescribable expectation. Chapter 2014. CCG's Base Camp. In the past few days, a large number of investigators were killed by the mysterious SSS class. We should be careful when searching. That guy is not something we can fight against. If it's not good, we should retreat. Two figures slowly walked out of the building that went straight into the sky. Both of them were wearing CCG uniforms and holding suitcases. It was Mado Wuxia and his partner Amon Kotaro. The SSS class ghoul is really rare. Especially this guy is really weird. We don't even know what his name is. Whether he is a human or a ghoul is still unclear. Mado Wuxia looked at the photo in her hand. Her face showed a bloodthirsty smile, and she went straight. The young man in this photo was Dustless. I understand. Amon Kotaro nodded heavily. Looking at Dustless in the photo, he felt the pressure. In just a few days, as many as hundreds of ghoul investigators were annihilated by Dustless. It could be imagined how terrifying his strength was. The SSS class was well deserved. It's really boring. In the antique coffee shop, through the window, Dustless stared at the scenery of the outside world in a daze. His eyes were empty and hesitant. It was really strange to be with a group of ghouls who liked to eat human flesh. If everyone was the same, after all, they had a common language. But Dustless found that it was really difficult to integrate into this group. And some ghouls could smell the delicious human smell from Dustless, and even cast longing eyes to Dustless. Greed and covetousness were difficult to hide. Dustless was really not happy, and his chest was stuffy for a while. God is really blind, sending me to this world where birds don't shit. Dustless cussed in his heart. Dustless, you and Tuka go to pick up a friend for me. Perhaps seeing that Dustless was too bored, the store manager Yoshimura Gyozen patted his shoulder. Friend. Hearing this, Dustless turned his head and asked strangely, the store manager's friend? Do you need me to pick him up? That's right. You can go with Dong Xiang. Remember to wear this. The store manager handed Dustless an ugly mask, indicating that he should wear it when he went out. Otherwise, it would cause unnecessary trouble. This thing is useless to me. I've already been exposed. If I wear this thing outside, people will only think I'm more suspicious. Dustless shook his head. He placed the mask on the table and left with Dong Xiang. It was great to leave the shareholders' coffee shop. Dustless was really uncomfortable to live with a group of hungry ghouls. Kaneki Ken was the best example. Who are we picking up? He shouldn't be the store manager's friend. That old man is an SSS level monster. No matter how bad his friend is, he should at least have the strength of an S level, enough to fight against a special investigator. His eyes fell on Tuka's head. Dustless seriously analyzed. That old man is probably kind-hearted again. Let's go together to save the ghouls. This old man should at least be dedicated to his job. As a ghoul, he should eat more people instead of saving people. He is so kind to be a CCG. Dustless was entangled. The store manager was really not like a ghoul. You are a sharp guy. Kirishima took a look at Dustless with great surprise, and immediately nodded and said, Yes, the people we are going to pick up this time are Mrs. Fuguchi and her daughter Fuguchi Hinami. It turned out to be like this. Dustless heard the words and had a little impression of the mother and daughter. Hey, Amon, is this an unexpected gain? Mado Wu-Su twisted his cheeks and stared at the mother and daughter waiting for the car in front. His face that was like dead bark was enough to scare ordinary people. Mado-san, are you referring to the mother and daughter? Amon Kotaro also looked at Mado Wu-Su's eyes, and the figures reflected in his eyes were Fuguchi Hinami and her mother Fuguchi Ryoko. Yes, don't you think they are suspicious? I have seen this mother and daughter in some information. Mado Wu-Su's eyes were shining, and his right arm was trembling. Amon Kotaro was stunned and immediately asked very awkwardly. Sorry, Mado-san, I don't see where they are like ghouls. Do you have evidence? Evidence? Glancing at Amon Kotaro, Mado Wu-Su said very disdainfully. No, Amon, sometimes intuition is enough. Let's go and see. The fox will show its tail sooner or later. Mom, look, someone is coming. Fuguchi Hinami pulled the corner of Fuguchi Ryoko's clothes and pointed to Mado Wu-Su with a smirk. White pigeon. Compared with the simple Fuguchi Hinami, Fuguchi Ryoko's face was obviously frozen. Under nervousness, she sweated uncontrollably. The white pigeons were wearing the same uniform, and they also held the same suitcase, so it was very easy to recognize them. Hinami, let's leave here first and wait for Tuka in other places. Seeing the crazy eyes of Mado Wu-Su, Fuguchi Ryoko, who realized that something was wrong, took Fuguchi Hinami and left quickly. Amon, did you see that? This mother and daughter really have problems. Mado Wu-Su sneered again and again. However, from their actions, they should be rookie ghouls who have just entered, and they chose to run when they met us. Doesn't this mean that she has problems? Her behavior is really stupid. Mado-san's words make sense. Amon Kotaro nodded deeply, but he was extremely puzzled. Intuition? Is it so accurate? What else do we need to investigate? Let's just train our intuition. It's good that the two of them ran away. Killing them on the street may cause unnecessary trouble. Witnessing Fuguchi Hinami and her daughter walking into the abandoned building, Mado Wu-Su quickened her pace, and her eyes flashed with tyrannical light. Decades ago, Mado Wu-Su's wife, Mado Wei, was killed by ghouls, and her body was bitten beyond recognition. Since then, Mado Wu-Su had become very energetic and hated ghouls. Chapter 2015. Therefore, every time she faced ghouls, her nose was more sensitive than a dog's nose, and she had an intuition that could predict the future. All in all, whether it was a coincidence or an accident, the mother and daughter pair, Flute Hinami and Flute Ryoko, were now in unprecedented trouble. Hey! Did you see that, Amon? These two want to run? Ha ha ha, stupid! Mado laughed sarcastically while running. They must die today. Yes, ghouls don't have the value of living in the world. Amataro nodded and agreed with Mado's words. Ordinary livestock could help humans fill their stomachs, but ghouls, not to mention filling the stomach of humans, if humans were not eaten by ghouls, they would be blessed by God. Hinami, you run first, I will drag them. Looking back, she found that Mado and Amon were getting closer and closer. Flute Ryoko stopped decisively and signaled Flute Hinami to leave first. She could only delay the time to give Flute Hinami time to escape. Run. You still want to run? It's ridiculous, if we can't even run away from two pigs, it's better to go home and farm. Mado, who caught up, sneered, and his pupils were filled with killing intent. For ghouls, he had a deep hatred and disgust. If he could, Mado would like to kill all the ghouls in the world. Mado-san. Kill them as soon as possible. Although Amataro felt that Mado Wu-Su's analogy was inappropriate, seeing his twisted cheeks, he tactfully shut up. People with mental disorders had countless sad past behind them, and there was no need to touch their scars. Go, Hinami. You will only drag me down if you stay here. Hurriedly pushing away the reluctant Hinami, Flute Ryoko's eyes turned into Kagun eyes, and huge Kagun-like insect wings swept out from her back. Humph. Overconfident. Mado snorted and immediately looked at Flute Hinami, who was running away, and ordered, Aimengan, I will leave that little devil to you. Don't worry. Amataro nodded and chased with all his strength. Who would have thought that at this time, the world in front of him suddenly became dazzling. Whoosh! In the abandoned promenade, there was a huge flash, and the bright light fell from the sky. Almost instantly, it was close to Amataro. Boom! The flash turned into a powerful kick, and it hit Amataro's chest. Pucci! The latter's face suddenly changed, and the red blood broke out of his throat. Hey, bullying orphans and widows, this kind of thing, your CCG seems to be very good. The light converged and gradually condensed into a human silhouette. The light voice was filled with endless calmness. Then, a handsome figure walked out of the light. SSS Class Ghoul. After seeing the newcomer, Wuxia's old face twitched fiercely. He took out Kunk at the fastest speed in his life and stared at Wu Chen fiercely. Old man, if I want to kill you, the time you took out Kunk is enough for me to die 100 times. It's hard to see a human being. You are so kind. First of all, let me introduce myself and help your CCG to perfect my wanted information. My name is Dustless. It doesn't matter what you think of me. In the past few days, Dustless almost every day. He was not with ghouls all the time, and he felt depressed. Until he saw Modo and Amataro, two living people. His depressed mood was released, and there was a rare smile on his face. You two go away. I am in a good mood today, and I don't like to bully the weak. You are too weak. Wait until you are promoted to a special investigator and then come to trouble me. Inari, there is no need to be afraid. At the same time, Kirishima Tuka also walked slowly with Flute Inari. At this moment, she was wearing a rabbit mask to prevent her identity from being exposed. She couldn't be like Dustless. Don't like to bully the weak. Modo Wusu almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Dustless's words were worse than beating him up. Amen-kun, are you okay? Modo Wusu stared at Amataro and saw the painful expression on his face. She sighed. The situation is not good for us, damn this guy, the fat meat in our mouth was snatched away by this guy. Amataro had been seriously injured by Dustless, not to mention continuing to fight. It was God's blessing if he could not become a burden. Sorry, Modo-san, I can only barely stand up. As for fighting. Amataro looked ashamed and bowed his head. He was killed by Dustless with one kick. He was really stupid, and he didn't even have a chance to fight back. It's good that you can't die. Modo breathed a sigh of relief and showed a rare relieved smile. He valued Amataro very much, and it was not a problem for him to surpass him in the future. Idiot. Who do you think he can talk to you alive? Dustless glanced at Modo coldly and said with disgust, Go away before I change my mind. You! Amataro glared and wanted to stand up and fight with Dustless, but he didn't have the ability at all, and his whole body was filled with pain. Let's retreat. Modo glanced at Dustless fiercely. She was helpless and could only drag Amataro away. The opponent was an SSS Class Ghoul. As Dustless said before, Amataro was still alive because of Dustless's mercy. Chapter 2016. It was not that Modo Wusu wanted to destroy her own prestige and boost other people's morale. The SSS Class Ghoul was extremely ferocious. It was too easy to crush a ghoul investigator. For example, the highest level special investigator wanted to defeat the SSS Class Ghoul. Of course, there were only a few ghoul investigators who were similar to Arima Kisho. But then again, this SSS Class Ghoul let us go. Is his head broken by the door? Modo Wusu supported Amataro to leave. He was even ready to die, but the strange thing was that Dustless did not chase them. Who knows, are all ghouls so kind now? Amataro murmured in confusion, full of puzzlement. Hey, that kid will regret it. Modo Wusu's cheeks were distorted. He did not have the slightest sense of joy after the disaster. All that was left was endless hatred and disgust. Hatred was the pillar of Modo Wusu's life. Especially the sentence Dustless just said, it deeply hurt his self-esteem. I don't like to bully the weak. This sentence was obviously looking down on them. That guy is really courageous. CCG is worried that there is no suitable codename for him. This guy dares to take the initiative to tell his name to us. Amataro, do you think this kid is looking down on us, or is he too confident? Modo Wusu supported Amon Guntaro and always felt that this was a great humiliation. Yes, He will regret it. Kotaro Shimon's face was also full of anger. Today was definitely the most sullen day in his life. He was beaten up by Wuchen. He was almost killed in a face-to-face encounter. Now, he even needed Mado Wusu's help to go back. He had lost all his face. Are you crazy? On the other side, Mado Wusu and Amataro just left. Kirishima Tuka looked at Dustless angrily, and her words were full of anger. You even let the white dove go? Do you know how many ghouls will be killed by such behavior? Her beautiful eyes widened. Kirishima Tuka looked at Dustless and pouted her lips. Of course, if he remembered her ferocious ghoul identity, he wouldn't think she was cute at all. In any case, although there were good and bad ghouls, their nature of eating humans had not changed. Miss Kirishima, you may be mistaken about one thing. Dustless glanced at Kirishima Tuka faintly, and said softly, I have a cooperative relationship with your store manager, Yoshimura Kozen. Are you using this tone to talk to me? Are you ordering me? As soon as he finished speaking, the surrounding space suddenly became much colder. You. Noticing that the surrounding air had become cold, Kirishima Tuka's face changed greatly. She subconsciously looked down and was shocked to find that the ground under her feet was covered with a layer of crystal-clear ice. Have you figured out your position now? You are not qualified to order me, including Yoshimura Kozen. Remember, he asked me to join the antique coffee shop, not because I am willing to or find a reason to join. Dustless said very indifferently, and suddenly realized that he had chosen the wrong camp. A serious human being, mixing with a group of ghouls all day long. Isn't this a brain disease? He was not a monster like Kaneki Ken. He was both a human and a ghoul. Eating humans was a necessary behavior. Every time he saw the group of ghouls eating humans, even with Dustless's nature, he felt a chill. Ghouls were really heavy creatures. No wonder CCG and ordinary people hated this group so much. Think about it, after your family dies and is eaten by ghouls, how will you feel? Let's go. Gently glancing at Kirishima Tuka, who was sluggish, Dustless immediately left, free and natural. Damn guy! Feeling angry, Kirishima Tuka finally chased Dustless's figure. Even if she was dissatisfied, there was no way. With the strength of Kirishima Tuka, the chance of defeating Amon Kotaro and Mado Wusu was very small. If Dustless refused to fight, Kirishima Tuka had no way to balance the two of them. Little girl, you overestimate yourself. You still want to order me around? Aren't you overestimating yourself? Seeing Kirishima Tuka's mouth pouting, Dustless smiled and said nothing. She wanted to control him. This little girl was still thousands of miles away. She was too arrogant. Tuka, I just heard the two white pigeons call him an SSS class ghoul? Flute Ryoko's face was shocked. Although fighting was not her strength, she naturally knew what an SSS class ghoul meant. An SSS class ghoul definitely belonged to the king of ghouls. Dustless's strength has indeed reached the SSS class, but what kind of species is he? I still don't understand at present. Kirishima Tuka's face was strange and speechless. So far, not only her, but everyone, including the store manager Yoshimura Kozen, could not figure out what kind of species Dustless belonged to. They said that this guy was a human, but his strength was extraordinary. Everyone also mistakenly thought that Dustless's Sharingan was a mutated Kaku Eye. Most people thought that Dustless was an out-and-out ghoul. But the strange thing was that as a ghoul, Dustless had never eaten human flesh. Dustless had no interest in this aspect. He preferred human food. As for when he saw human flesh, Dustless could not help but vomit. He could also understand why some humans, such as Mado Wusu, hated ghouls so much. SSS class ghoul. Flute Ryoko trembled. The shock on her face was difficult to hide, looking at Dustless's back. For her, this guy was like a god. Chapter 2017. Inside the antique coffee shop. Dustless and Kirishima Tuka brought back Deko Ryoko, as well as Deko Hataki and her daughter so quickly, which really surprised everyone. Of course, the store manager who knew that Dustless had the strength of an SSS class ghoul was no exception. Even if he encountered a special investigator, as long as it was not a Rima Kisho, it would be a one-sided victory. Manager Yoshimura, thank you for your care. Deko Ryoko bowed 90 degrees to Yoshimura Kozen and thanked him excitedly. Instead of thanking me, it's better to thank Dustless and Tuka, they are the ones who did it. Yoshimura Kozen just smiled slightly, and then said, the essence of the antique coffee shop is to help ghouls. If you have any trouble, you can say it directly. To be honest, I do have a big thing that I need your help with. Deko Ryoko said bitterly. You don't want to? Dustless looked at Deko Ryoko thoughtfully and asked. You don't expect us to save your husband, do you? Such a ridiculous idea should not be taken seriously. Ridiculous? I don't think it's ridiculous. Kirishima Tuka stood up and said with approval. As long as you and the store manager work together, it is not a big problem to defeat the CCG in the 20th district. Hey, you are right. After hearing this, Dustless agreed with Kirishima Tuka's point of view, and immediately looked at Yoshimura Kozen with expectation, and asked with interest, So, are you interested? Manager Yoshimura. In fact, even if the manager closed his mouth and did not answer, Dustless also guessed his answer. Why did this old man painstakingly maintain the peace of the 20th district? He hoped that the ghouls and the white pigeons of CCG would get along well. How could he destroy CCG now? I refuse. Sure enough, as Dustless guessed, the store manager Yoshimura Kozen unexpectedly refused. If I didn't guess wrong, your husband may have been caught by CCG. I am afraid that they have already arranged an inescapable net, waiting for us to walk into the net. The closed magma eyes opened slightly, revealing the dark red eyes, the store manager continued. Moreover, even if we are lucky enough to destroy the white pigeons in the 20th district, there are a large number of white pigeons from other special zones to support us until we are completely destroyed. After so many years of dealing with the people of CCG, the store manager maintained the current balance until CCG. If some forces tried to break the current balance, they would inevitably suffer CCG's crazy revenge. Really, in any case, it is impossible for ghouls and humans can live peacefully. Dustless shook his head. Sometimes, he really felt that the store manager's head was made of wood. If ghouls want to live, they must eat human flesh. Therefore, this is also destined to be a world of life and death between ghouls and humans. If they want to live together, it is tantamount to a dream. Hunger is hell for ghouls, no one can bear it, and human flesh is heaven for ghouls. Whether to choose hell or heaven, anyone with a little brain will make the right answer. Therefore, from the beginning, the store manager's starting point was wrong. In any case, ghouls and humans can't coexist, and one of the two sides must be completely eradicated. Right! A flash of inspiration suddenly flashed in his mind. Dustless looked at Kaneki Ken and said excitedly, Since Kaneki can also be transformed from a human to a ghoul, why can't ghouls be transformed into humans? Since the combination of ghouls and humans can give birth to one-eyed ghouls, although the probability is small, it also shows that the body structure of the two has the same thing. Isn't Kaneki Ken a veritable example? From a human to a ghoul, but there is no rule that ghouls can't become humans. Boom boom boom. At this time the tightly closed shop door was suddenly opened, and a handsome man with a strange appearance rushed out of the door, like a flower, instantly attracting everyone's attention. Yo! The person who came looked familiar at first glance. He took the lead to say hello, and immediately made a very exquisite etiquette. It looked like a top aristocrat who was born in some powerful family, and his whole body was full of nobility. Jukiyama-shi? It's a rare guest. After staring at the blue-haired man for a while, Dustless glanced at the identity of the person who came. This guy was a real S-class ghoul, and he also had an elegant title of gourmet. However, this guy's temperament looked elegant and calm, and his behavior was unattainable, but in fact, he was also a ferocious ghoul, and he had a unique nickname, Gourmet, which was enough to see Jukiyama-shi's pickiness of humans. Jukiyama, you are not welcome here. Kirishima Tuka seemed to have eaten gunpowder, and her face was indifferent and disgusted. Hey. If I remember correctly, you are a coffee shop here. Is this how you greet guests? Store manager. Jukiyama-shi smiled at Kirishima Tuka's threat, and even his eyebrows did not blink. It seemed that he did not put this little girl in his eyes at all. Hey, I got it. Seeing Jukiyama-shi sitting down, Dustless suddenly shouted. Kaneki, there is a guest. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and pour coffee for Master Jukiyama. Wu Chen quietly swept behind Kaneki Ken and unceremoniously kicked his family. Kaneki, you brat. Why are you still being reserved for me? Hurry up and step on the mine for me. Damn it! Being kicked by Dustless, Kaneki Ken just stared at him gloomily. When he was about to cut tea for Jukiyama Shi, he suddenly felt cold eyes around him. You are Kaneki Ken? The taste seems to be different from others. Chapter 2018. Does this guy want him to eat me? Kaneki Ken screamed in his heart. Seeing Dustless gloating, he was full of hatred towards him. This bastard was obviously deliberately trapping him. He did not offend him but still hurt him. There must be an unknown premeditated plan. Ghouls were very sensitive to the smell of human beings. Just like humans smelling delicious food, they could not help but eat. All these were subconscious instinctive reactions. Gulu. As Dustless guessed, Jukiyama Shi's mouth was dry. His eyes radiated the light of the wolf. His cheeks were almost crazy looking at Kaneki Ken. There was an indescribable desire. Everyone in the antique coffee shop, seeing this scene, all frowned. Dustless was obviously deliberately trapping Kaneki Ken. Although he exuded a unique smell, everyone could smell it, but Dustless deliberately kicked Kaneki Ken, obviously deliberately trapping Kaneki Ken. Let Jukiyama Shi notice this delicious eye. His taste is pretty good. Dustless laughed with bad intentions. His mouth showed a bright smile. It was full of endless banter. You bastard, don't talk nonsense. I am not delicious. Kaneki Ken, who was desperate, quickly pointed to Dustless. His face showed clear fear. Being stared at by Jukiyama Shi's greedy eyes, his body could not help but tremble. Manager Yoshimura. Jukiyama Shi smiled faintly, looking at Dustless. His brows immediately frowned. He always felt that this guy was a bit familiar, but there was no memory of this guy in his impression. What's the matter? Yoshimura asked plainly. Why don't you give me a price? How about selling these two guys to me? Staring at Wu Chen and Kaneki Ken, Yu Sanshi was so excited that he almost danced with joy. His eyeballs were so excited that they almost popped out. Such a wonderful food material, I am. Who are you saying is food material? A cold voice suddenly sounded. Dustless looked at Jukiyama Shi with no expression. The dead eyes were like an abyss, the depth could not be seen. Although everyone's time together was still short, people like the manager Yoshimura and Kirishima Tuka, who were barely familiar with Dustless, knew that this guy was on the verge of exploding at this moment. Ha ha! As for Jukiyama Shi, he still had an ignorant elegant chuckle. He looked very gentlemanly. He did not know that he had been targeted by a real hungry wolf. Let Dustless teach this so-called gourmet a lesson. Seeing such a scene, the store manager was silent and did not express any opinions. He had always advocated that ghouls should live in harmony with each other, but Jukiyama Shi had a nickname of gourmet. Not only did he treat humans as delicious food, but he also did not let go of ghouls. Therefore, borrowing Dustless's hands to let him recognize himself, this might not be a bad thing. Do you know what kind of person is the stupidest person in the world? Glancing at Jukiyama Shi, Dustless took a sip of coffee and asked softly. Unconsciously, he had already liked coffee, which was bitter first and then sweet later. What do you mean? Jukiyama Shi frowned. He subconsciously thought that Dustless was scolding him indirectly. The stupidest person in the world seemed to be talking about himself. The god of death is standing in front of you, but you said to the god of death that your weapon is too blunt. You can't kill me. Don't you think this is ridiculous? Even that idiot sees the god of death as food. This kind of person, is he so stupid that no medicine can save him? Dustless looked at Jukiyama Shi meaningfully. He almost said that the idiot was actually Jukiyama Shi. Hearing this, everyone in the antique coffee shop smiled and looked at Jukiyama Shi with a strange face. You asshole! Jukiyama Shi's face turned green. Dustless had already said so much. If he still didn't know that the idiot in Dustless's words was him, he should go buy a block of tofu and kill himself. So you think you are the god of death? You talk big. Do you know who I am? Jukiyama Shi suddenly stood up. He stared at Dustless with an unfriendly expression, his sinister face forming a cruel curve. He smiled evilly. If that's the case, how about this? Let's make a deal, the loser. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. However, before Jukiyama Shi could finish his sentence, Dustless's body turned into a stream of light and evaporated. Where is he? Where is my food, asshole? Jukiyama Shi rubbed his eyes and cursed loudly. When he realized that Dustless's presence had disappeared, he held his head and slammed the table in pain. Damn it, where's my delicious food? Who allowed him to escape? This idiot. Kirishima Tuka was speechless. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry looking at the crazy Jukiyama Shi. She had heard that he was crazy, and now she knew that it was true. Escape. There is no such word in my dictionary. A cold voice suddenly came from behind, and the Scarlet Sharingan confirmed that it was Dustless who had disappeared before. Ha 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 ha, he didn't escape? Hearing this, Jukiyama Shi was stunned for a moment, then turned his head with ecstasy, but what he got in return was a merciless kick. Boom! The kick landed on Jukiyama Shi's abdomen. Jukiyama Shi's face suddenly changed, and he immediately screamed in pain. He was shocked to find that a casual kick made a big hole in his abdomen. Kakaka. Even the sound of bones breaking could be heard. Chapter 2019. Eoeoeo. Jukiyama Shi's hands covered his stomach, his cheeks were twisted violently, and he was in pain. I remember. This guy is the SSS class school that was recently listed by CCG. Jukiyama Shi suddenly remembered Dustless's reflection. He wanted to slap himself. Jukiyama Shi, the Jukiyama family he belonged to, had a lot of connections in Tokyo. When Dustless became an SSS class school, he got the exact news. But at that time, he just glanced at him casually. After all, he and Dustless had no intersection, and the two sides had no grievances. But as the saying goes, enemies are bound to meet. Jukiyama Shi did not expect to encounter Dustless at this moment. Oh no, this time I kicked an iron plate. Jukiyama Shi was sad. He suddenly provoked a character that he could not afford to provoke, and his heart was blocked. It's all because of this hateful boy. Looking at Kaneki Ken, Jukiyama Shi's eyes were full of hatred. If it were not for Kaneki Ken, he would not be so absurd to eat such a big person as food. Therefore, all the mistakes were on Kaneki Ken's head. You still have the mood to hate others? Seeing Jukiyama Shi wanted to eat Kaneki Ken alive, Dustless sneered. His right hand shook slightly. A large number of photons rushed out from his 5 fingers and turned into a hot light sword. Kusanagi no Kento. Kakaka. Seeing this, Jukiyama Shi also knew that a big battle was inevitable, and now he did not show weakness and released his Kagun, and his eyes became Scarlet Kagun. At the moment when he became a ghoul, Jukiyama Shi's body was full of raging and crazy aura. It looks like you still want to eat me. Dustless snorted, staring at the Kagun wrapped around Jukiyama Shi's right arm, and muttered, This seems to be Kaku. I remember that Kirishima Tuka's Kagun seems to belong to Yukaku. Looking up, he saw a circle of spiral Kagun wrapped around Jukiyama Shi's right arm, and the front end became a big sword filled with cold light. There are many types of Kagun, such as Kirishima Tuka's Yukaku, Kamishima Rise's Maigaku, Nishio Brocade's Maigaku, and Sakuyama Seiki's Maigaku, all of which have different characteristics. Jaku's defense was stronger, but its speed was slower. Yuha's explosive power was extremely strong, but his consumption was excessive. As for Kamishiro Rise's Rinkaku, she had strong regenerative abilities, high attack power, but weak defense. In short, all the different types of Kagun have their own merits. I want to see what's the difference between you and the SSS class school. I haven't tasted the meat of the SSS class school yet. The moment the voice just fell, Jukiyama Shi rushed to Dustless like a breeze. You overestimate yourself. The store manager, Yoshimura Gyozen, shook his head and didn't even bother to look. Ayo. A strange scream came from the corner of his mouth. Then Jukiyama Shi's right arm, which was condensed from Kagun, chopped toward Dustless's head. Seeing this, Dustless did not move, quietly looking at Jukiyama Shi's attack. The corner of his mouth was swept with an imperceptible sneer. He did not avoid it. It was completely unnecessary. Puchi! The sharp Kagun sword cut through Dustless's body and ruthlessly cut his whole body. The upper body and the lower body were separated, and fell to the side. Ha 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 ha! Rampant laughter came out from Jukiyama Shi's mouth. He laughed triumphantly. What is this S-class ghoul in front of me? It's just... Puchi! Jukiyama Shi suddenly felt a sharp pain in his back. He turned his head and looked. His eyes almost exploded. Aren't you dead? Jukiyama Shi was shocked. He just cut Dustless into 2. How did this bastard resurrect again? Moreover, Wu Chen's spirited appearance was obviously unscathed. You just slashed at the air, that's all. Warm flashes of light lingered around the compound wound, nourishing the gap in Dustless's body. In less than a few seconds, his whole body was completely restored to its original state, repaired by the elemental transformation ability of the glint fruit. It's my turn. Suddenly stepping on the ground, the floor exploded in an instant. Dustless's body broke out an amazing explosive nature power, and he rushed like thunder. My Kagun is the strongest Kagun in defense. I don't believe you have any means to tear him. Jukiyama, she was not afraid. More dense Kagun broke out from his back, and immediately wrapped his whole body, as if covered with a layer of indestructible armor. His limbs and bones were wrapped by Kagun. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. At the same time, the hot edge of Kuzunagi's sword suddenly came, and there was a close contact between the two. Puchi! Kaka! Kagun, who Jukiyama she had high hopes for, was very fragile. It was pierced through by the edge of Kuzunagi's sword, and even his body was hit by a fatal blow. The scorched knife scar looked a bit shocking, and even filled the air with the smell of rotten meat. Plop! The attack brought by the attack obviously damaged Jukiyama-shi's body. He fell to the ground like a lamp without oil. The wound on his abdomen made him grimace in pain. You want to stop me with this kind of plaything? Glancing at the remains of Kagun on Jukiyama-shi's body, Dustless stepped on his head, and couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. These days, children's thoughts are so rich and ridiculous. You want to use a piece of paper to stop a shiny knife. Jukiyama-shi, if your teacher knew your behavior, he would probably be angry. In Dustless's eyes, was there any difference between Kagun's defense and a piece of paper? Damn it! Jukiyama-shi was angered by Dustless. His body wanted to stand up, but he was powerless. The knife had already brought great damage to him. Even if he was not a ghoul, Jukiyama-shi would have died at this moment. Chapter 2020. Dustless calmly looked down at the stunned Jukiyama-shi, the corner of his mouth slightly raised, and a hint of mockery could be seen on his face. You find it hard to believe? Dustless looked directly into his confused eyes as he explained. Don't you think you're too childish? You always think you're special, and that others are destined to be played by you? This kind of groundless confidence is really not flattering. Only after bullying people for a long time did Jukiyama-shi subconsciously think that he was unique, and thus his confidence grew. In reality, he was just an ordinary person among all living things. There were many people who could defeat Jukiyama-shi, such as the owner of the antique coffee shop, Yoshimura Kozai, but he didn't care about him. No matter how much trouble a child caused, adults would only treat it as a joke, and at most give him a slap as a warning. Get out of here. Dustless stopped looking at Jukiyama-shi. He had already lost all interest in this guy. You're not going to kill me? Although Dustless's look of contempt made him very uncomfortable, Jukiyama-shi was still very happy. If they could live, most people would choose to continue living. Why would I kill you? Dustless took a sip of the coffee, the mellow taste lingering in his mouth, and asked back. I don't have a reason to kill you. I'm your enemy. Jukiyama-shi lowered his voice and looked at Dustless. Enemy? Suddenly, a thick sense of sarcasm appeared on his calm face. Kid, don't be so full of yourself. Do you think you're qualified to be my enemy? Do you know the true meaning of the word enemy? Only those who can face me head-on are called enemies. Trash like you who can be killed in one move is just a simple mouse, the kind that can be trampled to death. Hearing this, Jukiyama-shi was mad and glared at Dustless. He dared not to say anything, because what this guy said was an undeniable fact. An elephant with a huge body would never be bored enough to trample an ant to death, just because it was bitten by an ant. The latter was too small, a small character not worth mentioning. The size of an ant was like a grain, and it would take a while to find it. Of course, the elephant would not bother with it, let alone care about its existence. The guy who brings shame to himself. Kirishima Tuka also responded with a sympathetic look. Let's ask, an S-class ghoul challenging an SSS class ghoul, is it not bringing destruction to himself in the end? Let's wait and see. Yu-shan, she glared at everyone, especially Wu Chen and Kaneki Ken. Wu Chen had crushed him, and Kaneki Ken had crushed him. Yu-shan, she naturally held a grudge. Just after running a few steps and leaving the site of the antique coffee shop, Jukiyama-shi breathed a sigh of relief, feeling that his life was back. When he was under the same roof with Dustless, he always felt that his life was grasped in the hands of Dustless. If he blew a little bit harder, his soul would be gone. This feeling was really uncomfortable, especially Jukiyama-shi, who was used to being high in the mountain. He was severely destroyed by Dustless, almost leaving a serious psychological barrier. However, as soon as he left the antique coffee shop, an unexpected figure hiding in the aisle revealed a meaningful smile at the corner of his mouth. This is the SSS class ghoul? I heard that he is called Dustless. His strength is good, but it is too strange. The girl's appearance was delicate, her delicate face was like a carved jade, and her pink lips made people can't help but want to go up and peck gently. This person was called Takatsuki-sen, the leader of Aijai Tree, and also the daughter of the store manager. A day ago, she felt the 20th district, but Takatsuki-sen was not in a hurry to contact Dustless, but chose to secretly observe the movements of Dustless. Is this guy really a ghoul? Why can't he fight at all? Even Kagun Eyes and Kagun. Without exception, Takatsuki-sen made the same question as others. The fighting method of ghouls was usually to use Kagun to duel, but Dustless seemed to be a bit strange. Whether it was the previous battle, or the one-sided suppression just now, it seemed that he did not use Kagun as a weapon. I can join forces with her. Maybe I can break the order of the world today. The girl's face outlined a charming dimple. Takatsuki-sen was quite proud to touch her chin, her white fingers slid around, her watery eyes sometimes flashed a cunning charm. It was hard to imagine that he was the SSS class ghoul, the one-eyed king. That guy is... At the same time, Dustless in the antique coffee shop. His sight also moved slowly, and finally fell on the leaving figure. The messy and slender hair was very conspicuous. The real SSS class ghoul came to me. Suddenly remembering the identity of the person who came, Dustless suddenly became interested, and said to himself, "This Yoshimura Gakusen is too kind, I was wrong to associate with this guy." Although he was an SSS class ghoul, Yoshimura Gakusen did not have the appearance of an SSS class ghoul. Perhaps the false piece meant more to him. As for his daughter, Takatsuki-sen, she was an out-and-out butcher. It was absolutely impossible to be soft-hearted. Even the reason why antiques would be annihilated in the future was completely because Takatsuki-sen deliberately sold the news to CCG. It had to be said that a daughter like Takatsuki-sen was rare. However, this time, the way Dustless took was different from before. The reason why he cooperated with the manager was that he wanted to know more about the world. Although he had the memory of the previous life, some knowledge that he did not understand must be popularized by the manager to Dustless. But if the object was changed to the Aijai Tree, it was not necessary, he could directly suppress it. Chapter 2021. I still have something to do, I have to leave for a while. After Tsukuyama she left, Dustless suddenly spoke, and immediately walked to the room where he usually slept. It seemed that he was going to pack his luggage. You want to leave? Yoshimura Gakusen frowned and asked. He was sure that he was going to go far. If he just went out for a walk or to relax, there was no need to pack his luggage. Yes. Dustless simply admitted, his eyes spread slightly, taking in everyone's gentle faces, and then said bluntly and indifferently, "This environment is not suitable for me." Do you think this peaceful life is annoying? Yoshimura Gakusen's rough cheeks were slightly tight. He looked quite nervous. The peace he created was torn by Dustless. They could only stand on the opposite side of each other. Who knows? His scarlet eyes flickered with nightmarish demonic light, just like a hungry wolf that chose a person to devour. A strange brilliant smile appeared on his dry mouth, and then Wu Chen walked to his room. This guy. The store manager Yoshimura Gakusen clenched his fist. At first, he drew Dustless to cooperate with him. The real purpose was that he hoped that Dustless could enjoy this rare peace, and in the future, he would face crises and defend it. But now it seemed that it was just a dream, out of reach. How could a person who was keen on war enjoy peace? Mr. Tetsuya. Yoshimura Gyozen looked at the silver-haired man beside him, revealing a deep and frightening pair of eyes. He said in a heavy tone, "When Wuchen leaves later, secretly follow him. If you discover that he has done something out of the ordinary. If you can kill him, try to kill him. If you can't, you can withdraw, pay attention to safety." Tetsuya heard the words and nodded with no expression. Even if he knew that Dustless's strength had reached the SSS level, he was still willing to take risks. Really, how long has it been that Takatsuki-san ran away? In the dark, smelly alley, there was a foul smell everywhere. Human bones could be seen everywhere on the ground, and there were clear sounds of crying and howling. It was probably some hungry ghouls who were eating. The young man, who looked very young, about 17 or 18 years old, was wandering in the alley. The person who looked around was Dustless, who was looking for the trace of Takatsuki. Senator Dustless's plan was quite simple. He took the identity of the boss of Ajairai Tree from Takatsuki Senator. If she was willing to be a follower, then it was easy to talk. If she resisted, he could only beat her until she was convinced. There seems to be a rat following us. His eyes leisurely looked back, and then his observation hockey quietly spread, and all the movements within a few hundred meters appeared clearly under Dustless's eyes. So it's him. Dustless continued to move forward without batting an eyelid. He pretended that he didn't know anything, but the raging light in the depths of his eyes quietly floated. Dustless had already severed all ties with the antique coffee shop, but there were still rats following him. Naturally, Dustless would not be courteous. They chose their own path, and no one forced them. Moreover, they had to pay the price for their mistakes. What was that feeling just now? Could it be a misconception? Staring at Dustless's back, Square Lotus Mark didn't know why, but in the end, he found it difficult to chase after him. When Dustless suddenly turned his head, Four-Sided Lotus had a feeling that he had been seen through. All the weaknesses in his limbs and bones were exposed under that indifferent gaze. The huge pressure even made Four-Sided Lotus feel a suffocating sense of crisis. Continue to track. It must be an illusion just now. It is obviously an SSS class school. How can it have that kind of deadly oppressive feeling? After hesitating for a few seconds, Square Lotus Mark's eyes were bright, glowing with bright and firm light, and resolutely stepped forward. No matter what, he was also an SS class school. Even if he could not defeat an SSS class school, he should not have that kind of illusion. Under the gaze of those black eyes, Tetsuya Rensher only felt that he was as small as a lonely boat and vulnerable. What's more, Square Lotus Mark had fought with Arima Kisho when he was young. Although the final outcome was a fiasco, he still escaped from Arima Kisho's hands. Maybe this was the source of his confidence. Since he could escape from Arima Kisho's hands, why can't he escape from Dustless? He dared to go in alone, and ignored my warning just now. Young people nowadays are bold and courageous, but their behavior is extremely stupid. Under the search of observation hockey, Dustless walked by feeling and quickly found a warehouse that had been abandoned for a long time. It was very dilapidated and estimated that it had been abandoned for a long time. It was not bad to make Square Lotus Mark's grave. At least after being killed, he would not be eaten by other ghouls. Damn it, where did that guy go? How did he disappear in the blink of an eye? The Four-Sided Lotus, who had followed Wu Chen, looked around. After searching for a long time, he still couldn't find any trace of Wu Chen. Immediately, he revealed an anxious and exasperated expression. The person who was given to him by the store manager, Yoshimura Gyozen, was to try to kill Dustless or follow him. Now don't mention killing Dustless. Now even the person was gone. How can he chase? His face inevitably showed an irritated color. Damn! Square Lotus Mark, who was angry, kicked the bottle at his feet to vent his anger. Whoosh! At the same time, the cold wind suddenly surged behind him, and the mysterious person with blood-red eyes suddenly appeared. Since you are so irritated, then I will reluctantly send you to hell. Chapter 2022. Who is it? Hearing this cold tone, Fujiwara quickly turned his head, and the scarlet three-tomo Sharingan appeared in his eyes, clearly indicating his identity. Buzz buzz buzz. Raising his head, he saw Dustless tightening his thumb. Dazzling light gathered and aimed at Liensher's head. Swish! Swish! Sensing the danger, Four-Sided Lotus hurriedly dodged to the side to avoid the light attack. However, compared to the speed of light, the Square Lotus was still too slow. It could even be said that compared to the speed of light, the Square Lotus was as slow as a tortoise. Poochie! A straight beam of light shot towards Fong Liensher, and a charred hole appeared on his body. It was obvious that he had been pierced through by the beam of light. Damn you! Fong Liensher endured the pain and looked at the wound on his chest. He couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. If he hadn't moved his body slightly, his heart might have been pierced through at this moment. Ka ka ka! Since Dustless wanted his life, Square Lotus naturally would not back down. He decisively chose to return the favor. Swish! Swish! On the back, the slender Kagun shot out, and the surface was covered with thick and hard scales. It looked quite domineering. At the same time, the eyes of the square lotus also became the Kagun eyes that belonged to the ghouls. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. He danced with all his might, and the long and narrow Kagun swept out from the left like a long whip. Humph! Seeing this, Dustless coldly laughed and completely ignored the incoming attack. He didn't even look at it. Armament hockey hardening. His limbs and bones were instantly covered with black skin, emitting an indestructible, dazzling light. Bang! The slender Kagun hit Dustless's body. If it were an ordinary person, the thick scales covering the Kagun could easily tear a person's skin apart. However, the scene that happened to Dustless made Square Lotus's jaw drop. Ka ka ka! The moment he hit Dustless, his flesh and blood didn't separate as he imagined. Instead, his Kagun couldn't withstand Dustless's hard body. The moment he hit Dustless, his Kagun dismembered itself. Ka ka ka! The seemingly solid Kagun collapsed like glass. How is this possible? This explosive scene almost blew Fong Lianchu's eyes out. He stared at the calm Dustless with a dumbfounded expression. His heart was instantly filled with a storm. The hardness of this guy's body has reached an unprecedented level, and the body of a ghoul is so hard? Even if it was an SSS class ghoul, it would never be able to do this. Tetsuya Tensei used all his strength to attack Dustless, but sadly, the first thing to collapse was his Kagun. On the other hand, Dustless was completely fine. This kind of vulgar joke was not funny at all. You are stunned. With a disdainful snort, Dustless looked at Tetsuya Tensei's body, and his strange eyes turned. Buzz buzz buzz. The scarlet pentagonal eternal Mangekyo Sharingan seemed to be screaming, making an unknown and terrible movement. Dustless's eyes focused on Tetsuya Tensei's body, and the place that was stared at by Dustless suddenly had an unexpected change. Amaterasu! With Dustless's order, the scarlet eternal Mangekyo Sharingan rotated, and Tetsuya Tensei's body burned with a black unknown evil light in the blink of an eye. Bastard, what is this situation? When did I get burned? The burning pain swept all over his body like a tide. Tetsuya Tensei's cheeks were full of fear, and he frantically extinguished the black flame burning on his body. But it seemed to be of no use. The flame could not be extinguished at all. Shit! After realizing the uniqueness of Amaterasu, Tetsuya Tensei was desperate. He didn't expect Dustless to be so evil, and also have such a terrible trick. Pucci! In the end, Tetragrammaton gritted his teeth and cut off his right arm and shoulder. The burning Amaterasu was separated from Tetragrammaton's body. Your courage is commendable. Seeing this, Dustless couldn't help but look at him in a new light, but his eyes were still cold. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Light appeared, and Dustless instantly disappeared again. He was like a ghost, coming and going without a trace. I am not his opponent. I must find a way to reverse this embarrassing situation. Tetsuya Tensei quickly planned in his heart, realizing the gap between him and Dustless. He was frustrated, and Dustless was bullying him like stepping on an ant. Remembering Yoshimura Gyozen's order, Tetsuya Tensei immediately turned around and fled to the exit. Since he couldn't kill Dustless, he could only run for his life. Retreat! After making up his mind, Tetsuya Tensei fled at lightning speed. There was no other way. The difference in strength between them was too big. Did I ask you to run? Humph. 90 Black Coffin of Breaking Tao. The pure black shadowless blades appeared out of nowhere, and attacked from all directions. Tetsuya Tensei didn't even have a place to hide. Wherever he ran, the black light would follow, as if it had eyes, and he couldn't get rid of it. Pucci! 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 In the end, Tetsuya Tensei's body was penetrated by the black light, and countless pieces of rotten flesh peeled off from his body. Some parts of his body were even reduced to bones, and all his organs were destroyed by Dustless. Plop! After being injured so easily by Dustless, Tetsuya Tensei lost the strength to support his body, and fell to the ground helplessly. Chapter 2023. It's sad. Glancing down at Sifong Rensher, Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. This guy clearly knew that his strength had reached the SSS level, but he had to come here to play some secret tracking. Before, Dustless also deliberately revealed his breath to be discovered by Sifong Rensher. His original intention was to hope that this guy would be sensible and leave. Who knew that he was still so ignorant and finally followed him? Cough cough cough. Xifeng Renshi was obviously not completely dead. Although his internal organs had been destroyed, he still had a breath left. You are really like what the store manager said. You want to destroy the peace he created. Looking at Dustless blankly, Xifeng Renshi looked helpless. Funny. Hearing this, Dustless stepped on Xifeng Renshi's head and said disapprovingly, the so-called peace can't be created by a retired old man, he is too self-righteous. Kakaka. With Dustless's voice fell, Xifeng Renshi's head suddenly exploded and turned into a pile of brain. And you? Suddenly turning his head, Dustless stared at the looming figure in the darkness and said coldly, you have seen enough, now it's time to come out and perform? This protagonist is dead. The other protagonist should show up. Amaterasu. It seemed that it was not fierce enough. Dustless destroyed Xifeng Renshi's body, and the black flame evaporated it. Ah, this fierce style is very similar to us ghouls. A clear and melodious female voice was pleasing to the ear. In the darkness, a figure could be clearly seen strolling over. Her messy long hair added a touch of wildness to the young girl. How should I call you? The girl gradually came out of the darkness. Dustless asked faintly. Ito Yoshimura, Takatsuki-sen, or, the one-eyed king is more suitable? By the way, you seem to be the boss of Ajairai Tree, right? What's the name of the idiot who was taught a lesson by me last time? It seems to be called Jason. He is also from your organization, right? He dares to attack me. Is it your order as the boss? You! Hearing this, Takatsuki-sen's calm face suddenly collapsed. Where does this guy come from? Why does he seem to know all my secrets at a glance? Takatsuki-sen looked at Dustless with a vigilant face, and could not help but lower her head and ponder. Tell me why you're here. Since it was rare to talk nonsense, Dustless simply said, if I'm interested, maybe you can leave here safely. You're really arrogant. Takatsuki-sen could not help but be speechless. It was the first time for her to see someone like Dustless who was so arrogant. Everyone was SSS class ghouls, and even one-eyed ghouls had more advantages than two-eyed ghouls. She really did not know where Dustless's confidence came from. How about we cooperate? Takatsuki-sen set her chips and said, overturn this rotten world in one fell swoop, establish a new system, a world where ghouls and humans coexist, Bullshit. Unexpectedly, Dustless was not interested in listening to Takatsuki-sen's nonsense, and sneered. One-eyed king, it seems that I have overestimated you. You are as stupid and childish as your father. What did you say? Hearing this, Takatsuki-sen looked angry, and there were a lot of kagun erupting from her back, and it was about to cover her whole body. Don't you understand such a simple truth? You're just a child who has not grown up. Dustless despised Takatsuki-sen for a while, and continued to satirize. Can a mouse get along with a cat? Can a snake coexist with an eagle? Can water and fire be compatible with each other? When you say that humans and ghouls can coexist peacefully, with all due respect, I already feel that you are mentally ill. The way of life of ghouls was to feed on humans. It was destined that the two sides could not coexist peacefully, even if they ate the dead people. If your family's elder who died of illness was eaten by ghouls, can you tolerate it? From the moment when ghouls were born, they were destined to fight with humans until one side was completely annihilated. That is to say, Takatsuki-sen's eyes suddenly shot out scarlet anger, and she asked coldly. That is to say, you intend to refuse to cooperate with me? You want to leave me alone? It seems that you want to be my enemy. Be your enemy? You're really ignorant. After a little exercise, Dustless rushed to the front of Takatsuki-san in an instant, and the sharp edge of Kusanagi sword was taken out of the scabbard. I'm not your enemy. It's just a boring one-sided annihilation like just now. So fast. Her pupils suddenly shrank, and she was shocked with cold sweat. She panicked in her heart. We are both SSS class ghouls. Why is the speed gap so big? This kid. Shoo shoo shoo. At the same time, a large number of kagun gushed out from Takatsuki-sen's back. Like a poisonous snake, it went to Dustless to bite. Puchi! Who would have thought that the moment they touched the edge of Kusanagi sword, they were all cut off and swept away. Light speed kick. Then Dustless rose in the air. His right foot covered with high-density flash, and unceremoniously greeted Takatsuki-san who had been wrapped by a large number of kagun. Boom boom boom. Under the violent impact, the kagun that had just covered the whole body collapsed and disappeared in an instant. Takatsuki-san revealed her original appearance again. SSS class ghouls? This strength is really disappointing. The sword pointed at Takatsuki-sen's neck. Dustless sighed with boredom, and at the same time, he suddenly noticed two strange breaths behind him, and then he sneered again and again. Your lackey is here too? You're overestimating yourself. All of a sudden, light filled the sky as countless divine weapons drilled out of the void. Wang Kaibao. Chapter 2024. In the void there were energy ripples all over the sky, and there were a lot of ripples in the void like rain. Then, countless magical weapons came out from it. The deadly cold light shrouded the oppressive atmosphere. These magical weapons, obviously, each of them had an extraordinary structure which could be called the best of the best. Ghouls have this kind of trick? Why haven't I heard of it before? Is it because we don't know enough? Three surprised voices came from Takatsuki-san and her two younger brothers, Noroi and Tatara. If you feel surprised, it can only show that you are short-sighted. Glancing at the two of them lightly, Wu Chen's mind moved slightly. Then, a continuous spectacular rain of weapons fell from the sky, and all of them stabbed at the two people who were stunned. You two quickly retreat. Takatsuki-san yelled angrily, and secretly scolded the two people. The square lotus just now was the most suitable example. It was the same as Tatara and Noroi, but what was the final result? It was crushed by Dustless, and even its body was not left. Shoo shoo shoo. The number of weapons shot down was too many, making people overwhelmed. There was no place to escape. They could only resist this wave of destructive and powerful attacks with their bodies. There was no place to hide. Puchi! 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 The two people's bodies suddenly became full of holes. Although they used cocoon to wrap their bodies were still full of a large number of weapons. Their expressions were extremely painful, especially Tatara. His cheeks were distorted. As for the SS class ghoul, Noroi, it was a bit strange. His body could recover at will. Even if his head was cut off, he could recover again. Tessese, these two cats and dogs are not bad. They deserve to be looked at differently. Dustless nodded with interest. Especially this Noroi's ability was quite amazing. This powerful recovery ability made Dustless couldn't help but think of the super regeneration of the Daimu Void. Ow! At the same time, there was a heart-wrenching scream from the opposite side. Taking advantage of the time when Dustless dealt with the two younger brothers, Takatsuki-san also completely changed into the state of Kakuja. The whole body became strange, surrounded by a large number of Kagun. The scarlet eyes on the face stared at Dustless fiercely. Submit or die? The white bone big hand pointed at Dustless. Takatsuki-san questioned in a cold tone. Even when she spoke, the fierce roar was full of a wave, which was enough to shake the human's eardrum and make the blood come out. Humph! Hearing that, Dustless just waved his sword. The golden cold light in his hand instantly penetrated Takatsuki-sen's ugly arm, and the wound suddenly began to spurt blood. I should be the one asking this question. Will you submit or die? Dustless asked coldly after he cut off the arm of Takatsuki-sen who had turned into Kakuja. Anyway, Takatsuki-sen's resilience was strong. Even if her arm was broken, she could grow another one, and it would not have any bad effect on her. Ayo. On the contrary, perhaps because of Dustless's provocation, Takatsuki-sen was irritated. Her big bloody mouth showed dense sharp teeth, and then she fiercely bit him. You don't know when to stop. Seeing this, Dustless also gave up the mercy in his heart. It seemed that only by beating her, this girl would be obedient. Is your body big? But in fact, mine is bigger. Kan Susanu. A lot of chakra erupted from the body, and a mighty figure suddenly appeared, with a ferocious appearance, and the mighty figure radiated an unknown murderous aura. Ayo. Under the control of Dustless, Kansusanu's big mouth also made a sharp roar, and the brutal sound waves turned into endless impact and spread out. Boom boom boom. Unable to bear the impact of Kansusanu, the long-abandoned warehouse first shook, and then it couldn't bear the impact of Kansusanu's explosion, and collapsed in an instant. What the hell is that? Seeing the super monster covering Dustless's body, everyone was stunned. They widened their eyes in disbelief and stared at the giant that was emitting an oppressive aura. Not to mention fighting, just looking at it made their confidence crumble. Noro, this battle is not something we can participate in. It's better to hide and watch. Tatara said with a very unwilling look. He didn't expect Dustless to have such a big killing move, and the mighty figure was even bigger than Takatsuki-sen's body. What is this? Your Kakuja state. Takatsuki-sen was also shocked. She, who understood Kakuja's words, stared at the terrifying energy giant, and felt an unprecedented small and unbearable feeling. If you know the limit of Kinsusanu, maybe you won't be so shocked. Seeing the shocked Takatsuki-sen, Dustless was too lazy to explain. He had already bet on Kinsusanu as small as possible, but the mature Kinsusanu covering his body, whether in power or physique, crushed Takatsuki Sr. Clang clang clang. Immediately, under the shocked gaze of Takatsuki-sen, a golden sword of several meters long suddenly appeared in the broad arm of the golden Kinsusanu, aiming at Takatsuki Sr. Gulp. Feeling the sharpness of the golden sword, even with Takatsuki-sen's calmness, she couldn't help but be stunned at this moment, and for the first time in many years, her body had goosebumps. I must open more. If I'm hit by that thing, I'll be finished. Perceiving the fatal danger of the light sword, Takatsuki-sen decisively chose to avoid the sharpness, and decisively swept to the obstacle on the left. It seemed that she wanted to avoid Dustless's attack. Chapter 2025. Are you running? Dustless in the mature body, Kinsusanu sneered again and again. Takatsuki-sen's childish behavior was really funny. The word escape in front of Kinsusanu was meaningless. When the ultimate monster Kinsusanu appeared, it meant that everything had come to an end. It's good to play the game of cat and mouse occasionally to change the mood. Kinsusanu held the katana of light to change the direction. Wherever Takatsuki-sen ran, the hot edge would follow, like an automatic navigation. There was no way to escape. Damn guy! Finding that she could not get rid of Dustless's attack anyway, Takatsuki-sen simply showed her ferocious side and gave up the plan to escape. Phew! Her ugly big feet rushed at the fastest speed in her life, and she crossed several meters in one step. You know that you can't escape, so you simply choose to kill me. Is this your last resort? Dustless's eyes narrowed slightly, and a dangerous light jumped in his eyes. Immediately afterward, Kinsusanu covered the whole body responded to Dustless's anger, and the katana swept out. Puchi! A huge slash whistled out. The dazzling light brought with it an unparalleled power. Even the air was cut apart by the chi. Ripples that could be seen with the naked eye rippled out. Oh no! Realizing the danger of the oncoming slash, Takatsuki-sen in Kakuja form was shocked and quickly avoided it. However, although the idea was good, the speed of the slash was too fast, and the direction was extremely tricky. It just aimed at Takatsuki-sen's head, and it would kill her. Puchi! The dazzling edge penetrated Takatsuki-sen's body and tore her body into pieces. Several arms on the left side were all cut off at once. There were several broken bloody arms scattered on the ground. Did I miss? Dustless frowned and immediately raised the katana of light again. Wait. Takatsuki-sen was disgusted. Seeing the katana of light held high, her scarlet eyes flashed with fear. This sublime power crushed her inner self-confidence into powder. Wait. Looking at Takatsuki-sen carefully, Dustless said coldly. Are you going to surrender? No room for cooperation? Takatsuki-sen didn't give up and asked, if we cooperate, we can definitely destroy this distorted worldview. Human beings and ghouls can live in peace. You also. Swish. Swish. However, before Takatsuki-sen continued to talk nonsense, Dustless's mature body Kinsusanu chopped down again. Boom boom boom. A huge and dangerous slash once again came rushing over. The biting cold edge of the slash cut a long and narrow crack in the ground. Its speed was several times faster than before. Damn it! Takatsuki-sen cursed loudly. When she wanted to escape again, it was too late. Puchi! The unstoppable slash crushed her body and almost split Takatsuki-sen into two. Although she escaped the fatal attack at the critical moment, even so, 1/3 of her body was still destroyed. It's so dangerous. Fortunately, I escaped from this blow in time. So many years of hard practice really didn't waste. While gasping, Takatsuki-sen was in a cold sweat. She didn't have the demeanor of an SSS class ghoul and the king of Aojairai tree. Instead, she was very lucky like a clown. You barely dodged this attack? Hearing this, Dustless couldn't help but laugh out loud. One-eyed king, do you know that if I didn't deliberately go easy on you, you would have been completely annihilated in the first slash? What do you mean? Did you deliberately let me go before? Takatsuki-sen's face was pale. She thought that her strength was strong enough, so she was saved several times in a row. But it turned out that all this was because Dustless let her go, which was a big blow to her. You don't believe it? The mature body Kansusanu's katana of light was raised high in the sky again. Not only that, Dustless's eyes suddenly rotated. Kakaka. A large number of high-density chakra broke out again, and the size of Kansusanu expanded again. Compared with before, it became bigger in an instant. I'm asking you for the last time. Are you sure you want to continue to fight against me? Surrender or die? Staring at the incomplete Takatsuki-sen, Dustless's tone was obviously full of killing intent, full of strong bloody smell. Compared with before, Takatsuki-sen's confidence was greatly lacking. She wanted to continue to fight, but the bad physical condition made her have no reason to answer Dustless. Although the recovery power was extremely strong, it could not be regenerated infinitely, and the consumption of each recovery was quite large. Moreover, this was not the most fatal problem. The key was that Dustless's Kansusanu was obviously much bigger than before. Under this situation, Takatsuki-san was desperate. Well, you win from now on, you are the boss of the Aijairai tree. The form was stronger than the person. Takatsuki-san had to bow her head. She was afraid that if she continued to resist, Dustless would really not hesitate to kill her. You know what's good for you. After hearing the words, Dustless's Kansusanu disappeared, and the huge oppressive feeling that shrouded the surrounding disappeared out of thin air. The several mountains that were on the chest of Takatsuki-san and others also disappeared. Until Kansusanu disappeared, everyone's breathing became normal. The deterrent power of Kansusanu before was too big. The deadly oppressive feeling made people full of despair for the future, including the SSS class ghoul Takatsuki Sr. So, the new boss, what's the next plan of our organization? Looking at Dustless, Takatsuki-san was quite curious about the purpose of Dustless. Well, it's very simple. Dustless pondered a little and immediately said coldly, kill CCG, kill all the white pigeons, those people who don't know what's good for them still want to catch me, kill CCG first. Chapter 2026. Annihilate CCG? When Takatsuki-san heard about Dustless's ambition, she couldn't help but be stunned. With the current strength of Aijairai tree, the chance of annihilating CCG was zero. First of all, not to mention other people, Arima Kisho alone was strong enough to make other ghouls desperate. Yes, my purpose is to annihilate CCG. Those white pigeons are so bold. They even identified me as an SSS class ghoul. They have identified me as an enemy. If I continue to let them live, isn't my kindness too cheap and ridiculous? Dustless said seriously, and at the same time, he looked at Takatsuki-san with deep meaning. This guy and Arima Kisho have a cooperative relationship. Staring at Takatsuki-san, who returned to her human appearance, Dustless was silent. About 10 years ago, Takatsuki-san and Arima Kisho set foot on a pirate ship, and Arima Kisho himself also had the bloodline of ghouls. Arima Kisho was actually the one-eyed king before Takatsuki-san, and later the two reached a secret cooperative relationship. But all this had nothing to do with Dustless. Those who follow me will prosper, those who oppose me will die, whoever goes against me must die, that's all. Let's go, take me to your organization to see. Looking at Takatsuki-san and others who were stunned, Dustless left. Dustless and others left for about half and 15 minutes. A large group of white pigeons came. Such a big movement, it was impossible for no one to notice it. It's a fierce fight. Moto Wusu carefully observed the messy battle scene, and could not help but frown. Especially when she saw the long and narrow cracks on the ground and the warehouse destroyed by the overwhelming strength, she felt even more incredible. Can this still be done by ghouls? It's too strange. It seems that only the SSS class ghouls can make such a big movement. Maruditsuki came to Moto Wusu. They had known each other for decades. Although the relationship was not harmonious, the 10 years of friendship was not a joke. Compared to this boring question, I'm more concerned about. At the same time, a handsome man with white hair and glasses attracted everyone's attention. The ku in his hand was completely different from the others. The suitcase was pure black. Who was the person who fought with the SSS-class ghouls? Looking at the messy battle scene, and the cracks left by Susanu's destruction everywhere, it was a ghastly sight. Even Arima Kisho couldn't help but fall silent at this moment, thinking about who was so powerful. The only SSS-class ghoul that Arima Kisho could think of was the One-Eyed King, but who was the person who fought with him? In the base of the Aojirai tree, Takatsuki-sen completely entered the Kakujiga state. Her appearance was extremely ferocious, which was the opposite of the previous petite girl. She exuded a majestic anger. Seeing Takatsuki-sen, the followers of Aojirai tree were stunned and subconsciously distanced themselves from this guy. Takatsuki-sen's brutality was famous in Aojirai tree. From now on, at the same time, a hazy black shadow slowly walked out of the darkness, wearing a casual coat, and his face always had a slight arc. The appearance of this person attracted a lot of ghouls who did not know what he was doing. He is the new boss of our Aojirai tree. Takatsuki-sen pointed at Dustless. She was quite unwilling to give up the Aojirai tree that she created by herself. She was really unwilling. However, what can she do even if she was unwilling? Dustless defeated her. The world of ghouls was so cold and ruthless. Either they were superior or they would always be a dog. It's you. In the Aojirai tree, there were obviously people who were familiar with Dustless. After hearing the words, Dustless was also attracted by this person. He swept along the place where the voice sounded, and the corner of his mouth suddenly surged with a faint arc. Isn't this Jason? The strong man who came into his sight was Jason, the strong man who looked like he saw a ghost. Why, do you have a problem with me? Seeing the stunned Jason, Dustless just glanced at him lightly, and immediately said coldly, if you want to continue to challenge me, I can give you a chance, but the result will definitely be the same as before. After hearing the words, Jason dared not to say anything. He subconsciously glanced at Takatsuki-sen, who had obviously not healed wounds on her body, and his face suddenly became pale. Boss was defeated by this guy. Jason looked at Dustless with great fear, and decisively gave up. According to his understanding of Takatsuki-sen, this girl would never easily hand over the position of the boss of the Aojirai tree. Since she chose Dustless to inherit the Aojirai tree at this moment, then the two sides must have had a big fight, and if it was not wrong, the one who was defeated was Takatsuki-sen. The scars on her body were the best example. I have a problem. At this time, a very dissatisfied tone suddenly came, revealing endless dissatisfaction and doubt. Is this guy a ghoul? He has a clear human taste. Let our food lead the ghouls. I can't accept this kind of funny joke. Looking at the source of the sound, the young ghoul with a handsome face with a few traces of arrogance suddenly floated like an eyeball. Isn't this Kirishima Ayato, the younger brother of Kirishima Tuka? Interesting. With a few imperceptible smiles on his face, Dustless asked with interest, what do you think is appropriate? It's very simple. Kirishima Ayato did not even think about it, and said without hesitation, of course defeat. The words on his mouth stopped abruptly. Kirishima Ayato suddenly sweated. Looking up, the dark red eyes were staring at him motionlessly, and his soul was trembling at this moment. Chapter 2027. Do you still have any opinion? Dustless stared at Kirishima Ayato and said lazily, if you have any opinion just come, don't worry, I won't kill you. Of course, I will only beat you half to death. Dustless's harsh words fell into the ears of Kirishima Ayato. His sweaty cheeks suddenly showed anger. His eyes stared straight at Dustless, as if he was not done with him. But the funny thing was, in any case, Kirishima Ayato did not dare to do anything. Damn, what level of ghoul is this guy? Kirishima Ayato screamed in his heart. Dustless's violent momentum made people not dare to act rashly. Even breathing felt uncomfortable, oppressed, and maybe suffocated at any time, let alone fighting. Listen to me, you group of bastards. Seeing that Kirishima Ayato was scared, Dustless's cold voice passed through everyone's ears. No matter who your former boss is, now you just need to understand that your boss is called Dustless. The result of disobeying me is very simple, that's it. Amaterasu. Dustless's eyes slightly stared. The ghoul who was focused by his sight did not have time to scream, and turned into dust in the blink of an eye. This guy. When the members of Aojirai tree saw this scene, They all nodded like a rattledrum. Dustless's ruthlessness seemed to be more than the one-eyed king. If I don't kill a few people, how can I scare you group of idiots? Dustless smiled and did not speak, and immediately his eyes fell on Takatsuki-sen's body, staring at her huge body. Tomorrow we will start to attack CCG. First destroy CCG in the 20th district. The group of white pigeons is too annoying. The next morning. The sun just rose. CCG was attacked by a large number of ghouls, and they were busy jumping up and down. This time the ghouls were bold to the extreme. They even fought with CCG on the road during the day. Unfortunately, CCG was still at an absolute disadvantage. They were beaten by the ghouls, and almost all of them were in the trend of collapse. The pedestrians on the road were scared and fled. Damn it! Did these bastards take the wrong medicine? Some of the CCG members who resisted in the front cursed. In the past, ghouls were almost in the gloomy corners. The number of times they attacked CCG in the daytime like this could be counted on one's fingers, or even none. Although the ghouls were strong, CCG was not bad, but this time the army suddenly invaded, the white pigeons were defeated, so that the CCG's high-level officials had to hold a large-scale combat meeting to discuss the serious issues at hand. In CCG's base camp. Pa. The director and Shuji Matsuri, who were angry, saw the battle report in their hands, and finally smashed all the teacups in their hands, and roared furiously. What happened to the group of ghouls? They dare to attack us in public. Who is controlling all this behind the scenes? The usually gentle and elegant Shuji Matsuri's eyes were red at the moment, and the speed of breathing was several times faster than usual. It is an organization called Aijairai Tree. It is very powerful and unusually mysterious, and it is said that, as one of the special investigators, Maruditsuki reported, Dustless, who was listed as an SSS class ghoul by us some time ago, also joined this powerful organization, and there is more news that he is the boss of Aijairai Tree. Dustless was different from other ghouls. He had always been alone, and he did not have the hobby of wearing a mask. Therefore, it was not a big problem for CCG to get his own information. Dustless. Shuji Matsuri was stunned, and immediately asked calmly, "Do you have enough confidence to defeat that guy? Because of him, the whole Tokyo is now in a mess, and we are asked to eliminate this evil organization immediately." Seeing that Shuji Matsuri hated ghouls, and even wanted to tear all the ghouls into pieces, all the CCG members who participated in this meeting nodded deeply. But if Dustless was here, he would not be able to help but laugh, because Shuji Matsuri, as the director, was an out-and-out ghoul. Not only that, CCG also had a special identity, V organization. In other words, CCG was an extremely evil organization. In the past, ghouls were hiding in the dark, living like rats crossing the street, but now it was different. After Dustless was upgraded to the big boss of Aijairai Tree, all the ghouls were active, and now they attacked CCG even more fiercely. Ding ding ding! At this time, the phone on the table suddenly rang. This is... Shuji Matsuri frowned, and immediately picked up the phone decisively. When he was about to speak, there was a voice asking for help on the other side of the phone. "I am Mado Wuxia. I encountered One-Eyed Owl here, and Dustless, who is listed as an SSS class ghoul. They seem to be colluding." On the other side, Dustless and others also frowned. "Is it appropriate for you to let him leak information like this?" Takatsuki-san stared at Dustless. She saw this guy lazily leaning on the wall, enjoying the comfortable sunshine in the morning, and his comfortable appearance seemed to be very obsessed. Mado Wuxia called the senior management of CCG in front of them and reported all the tragic situations here to Shuji Matsuri. "What do you think is not appropriate? Instead of letting us find CCG, it is better to let them take the initiative to come to us. Isn't it more suitable and faster?" Dustless said his thoughts. It was too troublesome to find them one by one. It was better to let them ask for support. It was better to kill them all. That's right, it is better to take the initiative to attract all the white pigeons to destroy them. Takatsuki-sen nodded immediately. It was indeed faster to lure the enemy to destroy them than to find them one by one. Chapter 2028. Amon, support for a while, the reinforcements will come. Mado Wuxia glanced at the tired Amon Kotaro. She pretended to be calm on the surface, but she smiled helplessly in her heart. A superior investigator and a first-class investigator resisted 2 SSS class ghouls, as well as 2 SS class ghouls, and even several S-class ghouls with good strength. What is this if not a dream? I will give you 2 a chance to choose. Just pick an opponent. If you can win, you can go back alive. Looking down at Mado Wusu and Amon Kotaro, Dustless rarely showed kindness. Hey, are you looking down on us? The young and aggressive Amon Kotaro was angry. His hands were holding Kuan-ku tightly. The Kuan-ku in his hand was terrible like a meteor hammer. I am afraid that ordinary people can't hold it. Since you let us take the initiative to choose the enemy? The sharp eyes were like an eagle. Mado Wusu's eyes swayed around, and finally fixed on Dustless, and said with a very certain tone, "No, it's you. The boss of Ayajairai Tree." Ha! Mado Wusu's words fell, and before Dustless opened his mouth to attack, other people couldn't help but ridicule. Is your head broken by the door? With your level, you still want to challenge Dustless? Jason sneered loudly. How did you become a superior investigator with such a stupid head? Yes, he must be an idiot, or he was upgraded to a superior investigator. The SS class ghoul Tatara also sneered. Don't talk nonsense, do you dare or not? Mado Wusu asked coldly. Her rough old face showed no regret and determination. Is your purpose? Dustless glanced at Mado Wusu, and immediately walked slowly. Forget it, don't say that I am bullying you. If he didn't guess wrong, Mado Wusu just wanted to test his trump card. After all, CCG's White Pigeon's understanding of Dustless was still blank, and then the information obtained from Dustless was transferred to other ghouls. Attack Amon! With a shout, Mado Wusu swooped down, and the umbrella-shaped conch smashed towards Dustless's head. The speed of this ghoul investigator is not bad. The silent Takatsuki-sen's words had a rare appreciation. Although Mado Wusu was a superior investigator, his real strength was far beyond this level, and his movements seemed to be very skilled, and he did it in one breath, and his speed was also the same. Of course Mr. Mado will definitely smash his head. Amon Kotaro was elated. Wusu Mado had always been the person he respected the most. Something will be smashed, but... Takatsuki-sen's tone was a little strange. She had witnessed the hardness of Dustless's head. Bang! The all-out attack with the weight of Mount Tai smashed onto Dustless's head, and a burst of ka-ka-ka sound was immediately heard. Success! Hearing the cracking sound similar to the skull's collapse, Amon Kotaro was overjoyed and looked along the line of sight. His ecstatic face was frozen, and his eyes were staring at Dustless, almost falling out. How is this possible? Amon Kotaro was shocked to find that even if Dustless did not have any defense and was hit by Mado Wusu, his head was safe and sound, and his cheeks always remained calm. What was broken before was... Damn, is this bastard's head made of diamond? Mado Wusu cursed, staring at the fragments of conch on the ground. He wanted to cry but had no tears. Just when his conch smashed onto Dustless's head, his conch instantly collapsed and became a pile of useless debris. Is the head of a ghoul so hard? The hardness of a diamond may not be so high. The conch of the ghoul investigator was destroyed, indicating that he has no way out, so... Amon Kotaro raised his thumb gently. The front part condensed dazzling light, and a large number of high-density photons gathered on it. In the next life, I will be a panda with no worries, so I won't suffer. Laser. The light without an endpoint flicked out, the speed was too fast, and it disappeared in a flash, almost the time to react. It penetrated Mado Wusu's body. Puchi! The heart on the chest was pierced by the hot light, and a burnt hole about the size of a fist was clearly visible. The whole heart of Mado Wusu had been evaporated by Dustless. Boom! Her heart was destroyed, and even the gods couldn't save her. Mado Wusu lost the source of her power, and her soul seemed to be taken away, and she fell to the ground helplessly. Mado-san! Amon Kotaro came quickly, trembling, holding the body of Mado Wusu, and the whole person was twitching slightly. I want you to die with me. The most respected idol was killed. Dustless's cold action completely ignited Amon Kotaro, who was a powder keg. He desperately took conch like a meteor hammer and smashed it. Bas! Seeing this, Dustless gently waved his right arm, and activated the glinting fruits ability. The palm of his hand was like a black hole, full of majestic gravity, and a large number of photons in the vacuum were absorbed. Yasakani no Magatama. His expression turned cold, and he decisively threw out a large number of flashes in his hand. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The golden light holes in the sky shot out, and the number was overwhelming, and all of them bombarded Amon Kotaro like a rainstorm, and each light bullet had an indestructible edge. Puchi! 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 The biting cold halo penetrated Amon Kotaro's body, and his whole body was like a sieve, and there were tiny holes left by the flashes everywhere, including his head, which was densely packed. Your relationship is like that of a master and a disciple. Letting the two of you die together is the heavens giving me face. You have to thank me when you go to hell. Wu Chen muttered in a low voice and brushed past the two of them. Chapter 2029. Such a ruthless style is not like you. Takatsuki-sen simply showed her human appearance. Seeing that CCG was about to be completely defeated, there was no need to continue to hide. Anyway, she was going to die. Why should she hide? It was completely superfluous, and even would be laughed at. Looking at Jason and Kirishima Ayaka, they all showed their true appearance to people. She, the former Aojirai tree, did not need to be afraid. As for Dustless, he never covered it. There was no need to. Afraid? What a joke. What you are doing? Please stop now. At this time, an old and powerful voice suddenly sounded, attracting everyone's attention in an instant, including Dustless, who also looked at the source of the voice. It turned out to be you. This is really... Is it a small world? Dustless and others all looked at the voice. The people who came out to make trouble this time were the people of the antique coffee shop, such as the shop manager Yoshimura Gakusen. Are you here to stop us? Staring at Yoshimura Gakusen, Dustless sighed. You are a ghoul. Why do you want to guard peace so boring? It is impossible for ghouls and humans to coexist. Still the same sentence, you eat others, and you want to talk about coexistence with others. Is this possible? Ridiculous ignorance. Old guy. Then just at this time, Takatsuki-sen suddenly opened her mouth. Her eyes were filled with raging hatred. Where was the kindness of seeing her biological father? It was obvious that she saw the enemy who killed her mother. This is interesting. Seeing this, Dustless suddenly smiled. Takatsuki-sen, as the daughter of the shop manager, why did she hate him so much? The actual reason was very simple, because the shop manager abandoned Takatsuki-sen, causing Takatsuki-sen to have a psychological shadow in her childhood. Because of this reason, in the original book, Takatsuki-sen deliberately revealed the information of the shop manager to CCG, causing the entire antique coffee shop to be destroyed by CCG. Hee hee, I like to see the father and daughter killing each other. Wu Chei's mouth showed an evil smile. He decisively chose to be silent, watching other father and daughter killing each other. Wasn't this a very interesting scene? Takatsuki-sen, don't be bewitched by this guy. Seeing his daughter looking at him with hatred, Yoshimura Gyozen, the store manager, was heartbroken. This was his own daughter, and now it had become a father and daughter killing each other. How could he not be sad? Hey, 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 old man. Although you can eat human flesh indiscriminately, you can't say such nonsense. Dustless looked coldly at the store manager, Yoshimura Kozen, and said unhappily, I have never lied to your daughter. You have to understand that she wanted to kill me yesterday. Is it necessary to bewitch Takatsuki-sen? It was completely unnecessary. It didn't matter whether she was there or not. Yes, this matter has nothing to do with Dustless. Takatsuki-sen also said coldly. This was a private matter between her and the store manager. It had nothing to do with Dustless, and there was no need for others to participate. You bastard! At this moment, an unusually harsh voice came over. Wu Chen raised his head and looked over. A face full of anger immediately floated into his eyes. Yo! I didn't expect the salted fish to turn over. Dustless touched his chin and muttered with interest. This person had black hair, wearing the professional uniform of the antique coffee shop. The black hair was very handsome, and the gentle face looked quite charming. Kaneki Ken? Looking at the teenager with interest, Dustless suddenly had a feeling that he had misjudged him. Looking closely, careful people would find that Kaneki Ken's figure had obviously become a lot taller than before. It was not that he suddenly grew taller, but after crazy exercise, his body had become stronger than before. Are you here to trouble me? Kaneki Ken. Looking at the black-haired teenager with boredom, Dustless asked jokingly. Why do you look like you want to beat me? Ah, that's really scary. Even a cat can beat people. Wasn't the former Kaneki Ken a cat? A soft egg. I have to thank you for this. You let me see the nature of this world. Kaneki Ken looked coldly at Dustless. His face was full of hostility. Not only that, several tail-like kaguns surged out from his back. As for why Kaneki Ken hated and even hated Dustless? Or because Dustless tricked him before, causing this guy to almost be ruthlessly eaten by Tsukuyama Shi. You've made a lot of progress. Wu Qin sighed in admiration. Then, his eyes revealed a coldness that was even more terrifying than frost. A trash wants to challenge me? The world has really changed these days. Phew. Kaneki Ken swooped down with the speed of a storm, coming and going without a trace. Only a vague afterimage could be seen. Go to hell. The kagun on his back were all transformed into sharp bobs, and all of them shot toward Dustless's head. It seemed that he wanted to simply kill him with one blow. Pucci. Without exception, the sharp kagun was ferocious, jumping with a dangerous halo, and all of them penetrated Dustless's head like a sharp blade. Now you're dead, you're just like this, what SSS class ghoul. Kaneki Ken snorted disdainfully and couldn't help but be proud. Pucci. Just at this time, when Kaneki Ken was enraptured, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his abdomen, and the strength of his body was drained. He looked down subconsciously, and it was a sharp, deadly sword. Sorry, I'm really sorry to make you happy, but I still want to remind you that it was just a simple clone technique. Chapter 2030. How is this possible? Ghouls have this ability. It's completely witchcraft. Kaneki Ken clenched his fists and looked at Dustless, who was smiling evilly, and his lungs were about to jump out. This guy really has a lot of witchcraft. The situation on Dustless's side, the store manager Yoshimura Kozen and her daughter, Takatsuki-sen, all saw clearly at a glance. Seeing the ability of Dustless, the two people's hearts were completely different. It seems that I chose the right target this time. As an SSS class ghoul, Takatsuki-san was full of joy. Although this was just a simple substitute technique, the shock on her was indescribable. After all, ghouls had never seen ninjutsu before, and it was normal to not understand its uniqueness. The shock was inevitable. And since she followed Dustless, she naturally hoped that the new leader would be stronger and stronger. After all, it was better to be under a big tree. Damn monster, how do the people of CCG work? This kind of guy should be eradicated early. Compared with Takatsuki-sen, the store manager Yoshimura Kozen's expression was stiff. Deep in her heart, she couldn't help but complain about the irresponsible CCG. Is this a SSS class ghoul? His strength was far beyond that level. Kakaka. In Kaneki Ken's body, Dustless stirred the edge of the Kusanagi sword. Kaneki Ken suddenly gritted his teeth in pain, his eyes were clearly bloodshot, and his mouth was full of disgusting saliva. Oh. The painful roar of being tortured slowly came out from Kaneki Ken's throat. Hey, how do you feel? Hearing Kaneki Ken's painful groans, Dustless felt particularly refreshed in his heart. The Kusanagi Cloud Sword was emitting a terrifying power, constantly destroying Kaneki Ken's internal organs. Especially since the Kusanagi Cloud Sword was a light sword, it also carried a scorching heat corrosion, causing unbearable pain. Kaneki Ken was being ravaged by Dustless. Let him go. However, the good situation did not last long. The blue void suddenly changed. Looking up, the sky suddenly turned into blood red, and the dense halos dyed the sky with a radius of tens of meters. This is... Dustless stared blankly for a moment, only to see red blood rain falling from the sky with the momentum of toppling mountains and overturning seas. This move is somewhat similar to my glinting fruits, Yasakani no Magatama, although its power is far inferior. Dustless nodded in surprise. Seeing Kirishima Tuka rising into the air, he just glanced at her casually. Immediately, Dustless's right hand suddenly grabbed the half-dead Kaneki Ken. Could it be? Seeing this scene, Kirishima Tuka's pupils suddenly froze, the corner of her mouth twitched, and she cursed. How despicable! Dustless used Kaneki Ken as a shield in front of him, defending against the dense and biting cold attacks. The majority of the attacks were all blocked by Kaneki Ken. Pucci! 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 Dense red flashes of light pierced through Kaneki Ken's body, unceasingly striking his body and mind. His entire body was like a hole, bleeding incessantly. Looking carefully, Kaneki Ken's body was full of holes. I'm despicable? Hearing this, Dustless looked at Kirishima Tuka disapprovingly and said disapprovingly, Tuka, I used Kaneki Ken's body to bear the friendship between you two. You should think I'm noble, right? You have a sharp tongue. Kirishima Tuka didn't speak, but the burning yukaku behind her swayed gently. Her whole body ignored the existence of the laws of physics, and flew to the sky unhurriedly, staring at Dustless with an overlooking gaze. Do you want to use that trick again? Staring at the flame-like yukaku behind Kirishima Tuka's back, she gently fanned, and a large number of blood-red halos fell from the sky again. Isn't this guy afraid of killing Kaneki Ken? Dustless's face was strange, and he once again blocked Kaneki Ken in front of him. Although this trick can be ignored directly by Dustless, taking advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to let Kaneki Ken bear the test of friendship, isn't it just right? Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Like a lot of gravel, all the sharpness fell. Dustless stood behind Kaneki Ken without fear. With him as a meat shield, he didn't need to worry about anything at all. Puchi! 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 Exactly the same as the scene just now, Kaneki Ken's body was once again smashed by Kirishima Tuka, bleeding incessantly, and the painful wailing of the double blow also roared out from Kaneki Ken's throat. Kaneki Ken's body, which had just recovered, was even more seriously destroyed by Kirishima Tuka, this cheating teammate. Despicable guy! Kirishima Tuka, who felt indignant, stomped her feet, and her beautiful eyes burned with a raging flame. Is it over? Slightly sweet, perceiving that Kirishima Tuka, who was temporarily floating in the sky, stopped attacking, Dustless threw Kaneki Ken aside like throwing garbage, and immediately jumped lightly, his body crossed the distance of layers of space. You are not the only one who can fly. Spitting out a big breath of cold air, Dustless's big hand suddenly grabbed half of the yukaku on Kirishima Tuka's back, and then the other hand coldly raised the unparalleled sharp Kusanagi sword. When did he appear? How fast is this guy? Even his shadow is not seen. Space travel? Turning her head and staring back at Dustless's cold cheeks, Kirishima Tuka inevitably felt fear. The indifferent eyes were like sharp barbs. Dustless's strength crushed her self-confidence. A strong person is not terrible, but if you can't even capture the opponent's movement trajectory, is it necessary to continue this boring battle? Not at all, anyway, it's a one-sided crush. Chapter 2031. It was no wonder that Kirishima Tuka was so stunned. The speed of light was too fast. The simple naked eye, or other special abilities belonging to the ghouls, could not capture the existence of Dustless. Shoo! After a few seconds of preparation, Dustless's Kusanagi sword in his hand slashed down. Puchi! The powerful force was obviously not what Kirishima Tuka could bear. She saw that the burning yukaku was suddenly smashed by a sword. It was very simple. Shoo! Without the support of yukaku, Kirishima Tuka, who was floating in the air, found it difficult to maintain her balance, and inevitably fell to the ground. She stared at Dustless's cold face. From the beginning of my appearance in this world, the throne of the sky that has been idle for a long time has ushered in its new owner, Dustless. A ghoul doesn't deserve to own the sky. Dustless glanced at Kirishima Tuka as if nothing happened, and his floating body landed on the ground. Shoo! Who would have thought that just landed, on the left side of the body, the majestic hostility rushed to him. Store manager Yoshimura Kozen? Seeing the store manager who entered the kakarina, Dustless was slightly surprised, not because of his strength, but because it was exactly the same as the description in the legend. The body was full of bird-like plump fluff, so it was called owl. Shoo! However, before the store manager Yoshimura Kozen approached Dustless, another one-eyed monster, which was larger than the store manager, flashed in front of Dustless. Tisk tisk, I'm really looking forward to the battle between the one-eyed warriors. Glancing at Takatsuki-sen, who was obviously larger than the store manager, Dustless said calmly. It's up to you, Sen, how to deal with this guy, you should know in your heart. Of course. The hoarse voice came from Takatsuki-sen's big mouth full of fangs, and she whispered, Now become my nourishment, father. Although swallowing SSS class ghouls was not sure that she could upgrade her level, there was one thing that was beyond doubt. If she could really swallow Yoshimura Kozen, Takatsuki Sen's strength would inevitably improve. What a good show! Dustless bowed his head and silently observed this scene. Although the store manager Yoshimura Gyozen and Takatsuki-san were SSS level, the strength gap between them really existed. In the original work, in the Battle of the Beggar One-Eyed Owl, the store manager Yoshimura Gyozen was besieged by several special investigators, and it was almost a stage of crushing defeat. Even if it was not for Takatsuki-sen, the store manager would have been besieged and killed by the special investigators of CCG. On the contrary, when Takatsuki-sen dealt with those special ghouls in the later stage, she almost killed them with overwhelming strength. The strength was completely different. Therefore, it was enough to see that although they were all SSS class ghouls, there was still a gap between them, and Dustless also had confidence in Takatsuki Sr. Now is the time when this guy is most careless. The black figure hiding among the corpses stared at Dustless attentively. At the same time, it approached Dustless at a weak speed that was almost negligible. Got it! After a while, the black figure that quietly approached Dustless suddenly jumped up, and the tight fist hit Dustless's back. Boom! This scene came too suddenly, causing Dustless to be severely injured in an instant. The power of the fist was extremely extraordinary. It directly blasted Dustless's body into a large piece of light. It was like floating snow that disappeared with the wind and disappeared in the sky. Boom, boom, boom. The body was ruthlessly smashed. A large number of photons were floating in the void. Dustless's body and breath disappeared. It was almost certain that he was dead. At this moment, the person behind the scene who attacked Dustless was Kirishima Ayato. You idiots deserve to be used. Even if you want to attack Wu Chen, you should choose the most suitable time. After he succeeded, Kirishima Ayato laughed loudly and was in high spirits. He did not intend to betray Dustless, but Kirishima Ayato saw Dustless tear up Kirishima Tuka's yukaku. She suddenly broke out, quietly approached Dustless secretly and launched a lightning-like attack. Although he did not care about his sister on the surface, deep in his heart, Kirishima Ayato still cared about Tuka very much. Otherwise, he would not take the risk of being exposed to attack Dustless. This was completely a bet with his life. Everyone stop, the boss of Ajairai Tree. Dustless has. Has what? I'm telling you clearly, I'm not dead yet. However, Kirishima Ayato's tone did not completely fall. The extremely contemptuous and disdainful voice resounded through the field, and the morale of the ghouls in the entire battle soared. You're not dead. Staring at the gathered photons, Kirishima Ayato's mouth was wide enough to hold his fist. He had seen with his own eyes that Wuchen's body was smashed into countless rays of light by himself. Why did this guy resurrect again? Bansho Tenshin. Since Kirishima Ayato took the initiative to betray him, Dustless naturally would not be polite. In fact, Kirishima Ayato's betrayal were also within his expectations. After all, Dustless bullied his sister, Kirishima Tuka. Therefore, Dustless could conclude that Kirishima Ayato would absolutely not watch Tuka being beaten. Although the relationship between the two was very bad, Dustless knew that Kirishima Ayato's heart still liked Kirishima Tuka. After all, she was his only sister. Damn it! At the moment of the eruption of gravity, Kirishima Ayato's body suddenly became uncontrollable, swaying left and right, and lost control of his body for a moment. Get over here. The big hand suddenly grabbed. The gravity distorted the time and space. There were subtle ripples visible to the naked eye, and immediately Kirishima Ayato's body was sucked by this strong gravity. Chapter 2032. Where did this guy get so many strange abilities? Kirishima Ayato continued to struggle, staring at Dustless's right hand. The small black hole exuded a majestic gravitational force. It seemed that even the world was going to be swallowed by it. It was very terrible. I can't be caught. Kirishima Ayato's lips were bleeding. He knew that if he was caught by Dustless, he would be completely finished. So he used all his strength. His feet stepped on the ground, and his kagun was like a rope, tightly grasping the surrounding ruins. You can struggle. Staring at Kirishima Ayato with interest, Dustless increased the output of chakra in his body. Come here. The black hole in the palm of his hand erupted a more violent gravitational force, pulling the time and space. The black shadow gradually radiated, and it had the momentum to swallow the sky. Kirishima Ayato suddenly could not continue to hold on. and the whole person quickly rushed to Dustless. Go to hell. Seeing Kirishima Ayato rushing to him, Dustless's other free hand suddenly raised, and said lazily, I heard that the recovery power of ghouls is very strong. But, can you heal your body when it is split in half? Stop it. At the same time, Kirishima Tuka suddenly stared at Dustless with anger, and whispered, If you dare to hurt my brother, I will not let you go easily. Is that so? It's terrible. Dustless made a fearful expression, and immediately put away the Kusanagi sword. It seemed that he was really afraid of the threat of Kirishima Tuka. You know what to do. Seeing this, Kirishima Tuka glanced at Wu Chen. After seeing that he gave up, she breathed a sigh of relief. However, before Kirishima Tuka calmed down, Dustless's sudden action shocked her. She saw Kirishima Ayato's body slowly collapsed and dissipated. Truth-seeking ball. The dark ball hit Kirishima Ayato's body. There was no damage on the surface, but strangely, his body began to collapse slowly. What did you do to my body? Kirishima Ayato looked at Dustless in panic. His body began to disappear from his legs. You bastard! Seeing this, Kirishima Tuka's eyes were bloodshot, jumping with crazy light. You may not know my style of doing things. Glancing at Kirishima Tuka faintly, Wu Chen played with his thumb in boredom. From time to time, there was a click-click sound. Ignorant, is there any difference between threatening me and seeking death? Since some things have been done, they must pay the price. She dared to threaten him. Not only did it not alleviate Dustless's concern about killing people, but it made his heart more disgusted. Especially Kirishima Tuka was just a ghoul. Farewell, in dust 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 Dustless. Kirishima Tuka, who was hit hard, glared at Dustless with a crazy face. She wanted to die together with him. You really don't know how high the sky is. You want to kill me? At your current level, even if your strength is multiplied by 100 times, you are not my opponent. Dustless snorted and said unreasonably. From the moment of birth, ghouls have to eat human flesh to relieve their inner hunger. This guy has eaten so many people. What's wrong with me killing him now? He eats dead people. Kirishima Tuka quibbled. Is it? Dustless stared at Kirishima Tuka, who was blushing, and he could even see the tears in her eyes. Tuka, Dustless's tone suddenly became a lot more friendly, and said softly, If you are a human, your relatives' bodies are eaten by ghouls as food, then how do you feel? Hearing this, Kirishima Tuka was speechless. Her small face showed a dull and dazed color. Does this need to be said? Of course, the person who ate her brother's body was cut into pieces, and the bones were burned to ashes. You're speechless, huh? Kirishima Tuka's performance was expected by Dustless, and he said softly, Therefore, ghouls living in the world is the beginning of evil, and they are killed by themselves. It was natural to eat others for revenge, just like Mado Wusu's wife Mado Wei was killed by the one-eyed owl, and then she was eaten beyond recognition. Was it wrong for Mado Wusu to hate ghouls? Tuka, don't listen to this man's nonsense. This is all nonsense, deceit. Noticing that Kirishima Tuka was fooled by Dustless, the store manager Yoshimura Gyozen quickly reminded loudly, ghouls and humans should coexist with humans. Boom! However, sadly, before Yoshimura Gyozen could continue to talk nonsense, he was hit by Takatsuki Senator. Although both of them were SSS-class ghouls, there was indeed a gap in strength. Looking at the body shape, Yoshimura Gyozen was not as good as Takatsuki Sr. Whoosh! At the same time, the harsh sirens sounded through the war-torn city. Looking up, a large number of police cars came quickly, and there were dozens of them. The protagonist is finally here. CCG. CCG was not a good thing. For example, their director, Washu Matsuri, was an out-and-out ghoul. Arima Kisho was also a half-human with ghoul's blood, so he was so powerful that he could suppress SSS-class ghouls. And the so-called CCG was actually a very mysterious organization of ghouls, v. Chapter 2033. A large number of CCGs came down from the police cars with sirens, and a large number of white pigeons carrying briefcases surrounded them from all directions. The number is really scary. Dustless looked at this scene with interest. Seeing a large number of investigators rushing over, his face had a faint smile, and a lot of flashes appeared in his hand again. Yasakani no Magatama. The dense light eggs roared out, as dense as a rainstorm. Phew! At the moment when they were thrown out, a large number of investigators were killed, and the deadly light bombs were brewing powerful destruction, which was beyond the cognition of these investigators. After all, the previous ghouls used Kagun to attack, and the ghouls that manipulated light had never been heard of. Poochie! Many people were killed by the flash, and their bodies were left with shocking cracks. Some people who were not killed by a blow were lying on the ground and screaming. Their bodies were hit with more than a dozen holes, and even more, which was more uncomfortable than killing them. Bastard! Seeing this scene, some special ghoul investigators glared at Dustless with fire in their eyes. Ghoul investigators had been through countless training, and the number was small. The Confucians were so easily smashed by Dustless. How could they not feel pain in their hearts? Go to hell! Shinohara Yukinori, one of the special investigators, was wearing a heavy armor, and immediately rushed in anger. His fierce appearance seemed to want a revenge for the ghoul investigators who were killed by Dustless. Fragile! Seeing this, Dustless just smiled disdainfully, staring at Shinohara Yukinori. His eyes were full of disapproval. A special ghoul investigator sounded scary, but the strength? Shinra Tensei. Shinohara Yukinori, who was wearing a heavy armor, was attacked by a strong wave, and his body instantly flew out. Poochie! After being hit, he fell more than 10 meters away. Shinohara Yukinori was lying on the ground, spurting blood. Even his forehead was like this, the whole person was bloody. It was horrible to look at. It's really fragile. Seeing that Shinohara Yukinori was so vulnerable, Dustless couldn't help but mock. Special investigator? I just used a small amount of strength to defeat the insect. Mr. Shinohara. Witnessing Shinohara Yukinori, who was killed in seconds, Juzo Suzuki stared at Dustless with an angry face, and his eyes were filled with bloodthirsty madness. Brat, if you're not convinced, just come at me. Dustless looked at Juzo Suzuki dully. Because there were too many ghouls, other special investigators went to support other white pigeons, and no one regarded Dustless as a target. After looking around, Dustless was disappointed to find that there was no trace of Mague Jiang. I'll treat you as an appetizer as a big meal for now. His plain eyes fell on Juzo Suzuki with contempt. Dustless said sarcastically, CCG is just a group of garbage concentration camp, including you and Shinohara Yukinori. Dustless had a vicious face and didn't care about provoking Juzo Suzuki. What did you say? I dare you to say that again. Although Juzo Suzuki looked simple and ignorant, he also had a bottom line in his heart. Shinohara Yukinori, if anyone hurt this person, Juzo Suzuki would desperately fight with him. Don't say it once, 10 times will do. Dustless raised his voice, and the powerful voice angered Juzo Suzuki. CCG is garbage, CCG is garbage, Shinohara Yukinori is garbage, useless garbage, garbage. Bastard, go to hell. Hearing the words, Juzo Suzuki was furious. Holding several sharp blades in both hands, he swooped down at all costs. Young man, your courage is commendable, but this head. Speaking up to this point, Wu Chen's tone instantly became gloomy. So stupid. Even the special investigator was killed by me. Do you think a small fry like you is qualified to speak? Focusing his eyes on this person, Dustless's eternal Manjikyu Sharingan blinked gently, and the surging eye power was like a volcanic eruption, radiating the light of choosing people. Tsukuyami. Putong. Juzo Suzuki, who looked at Dustless's eyes, fell to the ground strangely, and his body twitched inexplicably. Damn guy, what did you do to Juzo? Shinohara Yukinori found that Juzo Suzuki was instantly killed by Dustless, and his body was still twitching inexplicably. His old face was full of worry. He controlled his trembling body and walked slowly to Juzo Suzuki. Can you still stand up? Dustless was quite surprised by his physical strength, glanced at the armor covered by Shinohara Yukinori, and whispered, It seems that this scrap metal still has some use, but, his eyes narrowed slightly, and Dustless's figure suddenly disappeared. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. At the same time, the direction of Shinohara Yukinori's advancement suddenly became extremely bright, enough to scatter human eyes. Shinohara Yukinori subconsciously picked up his right hand to block in front of his eyes, and through the weak gap between his 5 fingers, he tried to observe the scene in front of him. Buzz, buzz, buzz. 5 or 6 meters ahead, a large number of flashes gathered, and the scorching light made people unable to get close, and it was extremely dazzling, giving people the illusion of looking directly at the sun. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Immediately afterward, this inexplicably condensed light rushed forward and rushed in front of Shinohara Yukinori in an instant. Not good. Shinohara Yukinori suddenly realized that the god of death was waving at him, and he quickly used all his strength to retreat. However, compared with the speed of light, Shinohara Yukinori's speed was as slow as a turtle crawling. Even if it was a short moment, Dustless could easily kill him hundreds of times. Pucci! The light sword swept across the void, and golden ripples appeared in the air. The dangerous and cold light of the sword shredded Shinohara Yukinori's body. Chapter 2034. Gotcha! Although Shinohara Yukinori's body was covered with a strong armor, it was obviously difficult to resist Dustless's attack. A long and narrow gap was torn out. It was extremely simple, like cutting a piece of paper. It was extremely simple. Pucci! The armor was destroyed, and Shinohara Yukinori's body naturally could not be spared. The golden edge continued to move forward until his entire body was penetrated. Goodbye, everyone! As the desperate voice fell, Shinohara Yukinori closed his eyes in despair. His vitality was exhausted, and his body was separated into 2. He was simply cut in half by Dustless. Look, that's Mr. Shinohara. Oh my god, how is this possible? The special investigator was killed by that pervert. Damn it, how can we deal with such an enemy? Even the special investigator can't do it, let alone us. Is this the strongest SSS class ghoul? Let's run away. Dustless killed Shinohara Yukinori with overwhelming strength. Such a rare scene was seen by almost all the ghoul investigators, and everyone's heart could not help but feel despair and panic. Keep your spirits up. Seeing that the ghoul investigators were looking at Dustless in shock, Washu Matsushi, as the director, suddenly waved his arm. Everyone, don't forget your mission. Behind us is the entire Tokyo. We must not let this group of evil ghouls take a step forward. Otherwise, the unlucky ones will be the ordinary citizens who have no strength, including your wives and children. It had to be said that although Washu Matsushi was a wolf in human skin, his ability to fool people was not simple. After all, he had been the director for many years, and he was good at talking. Yes, behind us is the entire Tokyo. There is no way to retreat. Many investigators who were encouraged regained their confidence and looked at the ghouls who were addicted to killing. As Washu Matsushi said, even if they were for their families, they were determined not to retreat. What should I say? A bunch of ignorant idiots. They don't even know that they've been used. The officers who noticed that the ghouls were all indignant, and everyone's heart was full of righteous anger. Dustless smiled and said nothing. If the enemy of the ghoul investigator is really a ghoul, then the first person to be destroyed by this group of people should be Washu Matsuri. Although Washu Matsuri was the director of CCG, his real identity was a ghoul. Humph, have you surrendered? Finding that Dustless was standing safely, Washu Matsuri also breathed a sigh of relief, and at the same time said righteously, "Justice will never lose to you evil ghouls." Pucci! Hearing this, Dustless could not help but laugh out loud. His expression was extremely exaggerated, as if he had encountered the funniest joke in the world. Bastard, you are just a ghoul, how dare you be so arrogant? Seeing this, Washu Matsuri's face was red, and he stared at Dustless with a fake smile. You garbage are not qualified to live in the world, and you are not qualified to breathe under the sun. It's funny, do you have the qualification to talk about others? Looking directly at Washu Matsuri's eyes, Dustless sneered. What should I call you? People from V Organization, or Mr. Mustard? To be honest, you really have a lot of identities, or is it more appropriate to call you a ghoul? Mr. Director of CCG. Hearing this, Washu Matsuri was unmoved on the surface, but his heart was in turmoil. He couldn't help but think, how does this guy know my identity? Which bastard betrayed me? You must kill him. His heart was like this, but Washu Matsuri sneered and denied. Vulgar, are you really an SSS class ghoul? You even use this ridiculous trick. It's really funny. Yes. How can the director be a ghoul? What nonsense. The ghouls who heard this also looked at Dustless with an idiotic face. Washu Matsuri had been the director of CCG for many years, and he usually maintained gentleness and friendliness. How could he be a ghoul that everyone wanted to kill? A group of hopeless idiots. Seeing this, Dustless was too lazy to talk nonsense with them. His whole body was covered with bright light, and he turned into a rainbow and rushed out. Phew! The straight flash was unstoppable, and it rushed straight to Washu Matsuri. The speed was so fast that when others reacted, Dustless had almost disappeared, and no one could keep up with his speed. Stop him! This guy wants to hurt Director Washu. CCG's minions quickly shouted loudly, and just at this time, a graceful figure resolutely blocked in front of Washu Matsuri. This person had golden hair, and her facial features were quite delicate and perfect. Her well-proportioned pretty face was evenly distributed. No matter from which direction, the face could be called a beautiful little face. Finally, a beautiful woman came out. Finding that this woman blocked his way, Dustless's body turned into a real body. Although there were many women around him, such as Takatsuki-sen and Kirishima Tuka, they were all ghouls. Thinking of their ferocious appearance of eating humans, Dustless could not help but tremble strangely. Therefore, seeing a human woman, and a very familiar woman, Dustless felt quite familiar. Mado Akira? Take advantage of the fact that I haven't lost interest in you and leave quickly. Otherwise. Waving the light sword in his hand, Wu Chen's voice was incomparably cold. The number of beautiful women that have been killed by me isn't a small number. Chapter 2035. Are you Mado Akira? Quickly leave before I lose interest in you. Otherwise. Waving the light sword in his hand, Wu Chen's voice was incomparably cold. The number of beautiful women that have been killed by me isn't a small number. This was not Dustless's alarmist words. The number of women who died in his hands was not few. It's incredible. Unexpectedly, Mado Akira did not appreciate it. She took the unique Ku to guard against Dustless and sneered, even ghouls know how to be gentle to humans. This era is changing really fast. But with all due respect, your pity makes me unable to be happy. You don't know what's good for you. Hearing this, Dustless's face was slightly cold, and immediately swooped out. He did not even look at her. He just looked at Washu Matsuri behind Mado Akira. This guy was the culprit. If he defeated him, everything will collapse. CCG will naturally collapse and end. You want to die. Seeing Dustless ignoring her existence, Mado Akira was ashamed and angry. Being ignored by a mere ghoul was a big blow to her. Whoosh! Under the irrigation of anger, Mado Akira swung Ku, which was like a long whip, swept from the side and went straight to Dustless's cheek. It's just a cheap attack. Unexpectedly, Dustless just glanced at Mado Akira and grabbed Ku with his left hand. Hey, do you think your hand is made of steel? Seeing this, Mado Akira sneered. Her Ku was covered with a lot of thorns and barbs. If he grabbed it, his hands would inevitably be bloody. Boom! A dull noise fell. Dustless suddenly grabbed the bloody red Ku with his bare hands. Idiot! Mado Akira was overjoyed. Seeing Dustless grab her Ku, she said sarcastically, Hey, is your hand? Mado Akira's eyes were fixed on Dustless's left hand. She was shocked to find that even though he was holding on to Kuen's barbs, he was still safe and sound. Dustless's hand was not as badly mutilated as imagined. His white little hand was like carved jade, more beautiful and perfect than Mado Akira's skin. How is this possible? Mado Akira's eyes widened, and her flustered tone carried endless shock. Ka. Dustless only used a little force, and Ku collapsed in an instant. The child's play is over. Go back to where you came from. There is a generation gap between the world of adults and the world of children. Passing by Mado Akira's side, Dustless only left a cold tone, and then slowly walked to Washu Matsuri. Trash. Looking at Mado Akira, Washu Matsuri's face twitched. Men, quickly get rid of this villain for me. Looking around, Washu Matsuri called the investigators around him to come to support. He was helpless to the extreme, and he couldn't say anything. If no one was here, Yoshitsugu could still free himself as a gesture. But if someone was here, wouldn't that be a blatant death wish? How can he be the director in the future? Stop him. Don't let him get close to the director. Damn ghoul. 2 fists can't beat 4 hands, let's kill him together. Listening to Washu Matsuri's cry for help, the investigators abandoned their opponents and came from all directions to support. All of them looked at Dustless angrily. Since you want to die, I will not be polite. Chakra in the body spread out, Dustless's murderous aura swelled to an unstoppable degree, and within hundreds of meters, it was full of oppression. Super Shinra Tensei. The violent chakra broke out of the body, and the place 20 meters away from Dustless was hit by a terrifying attack. Boom boom boom. The vibration like a natural disaster suddenly came, an invisible force, annihilated and flattened together. The surface within 100 meters was cut into a deep pit, dust and smoke drifted, as if it was the end of the world. Not only the investigators, but also the ghouls who fought with them were affected, and they were not willing to be obliterated in an instant. On the ground, there was a deep pit with a radius of 100 meters, which was as terrible as being hit by a meteorite from outer space. Are you crazy? Takatsuki-sen was stunned. Looking at Dustless like a machine, she was shocked. Crazy. Glancing at Takatsuki-sen, Dustless slowly said, Girl, I said before, in my eyes, no matter ghouls and humans, they are the same creatures, but they only have a unified name, ants. You! Hearing the words, Takatsuki-sen was silent, looking at Dustless with some scruples. She suddenly realized that she followed a moody, hungry wolf. Are they all dead? Mado Akira was also stunned. She was close to Dustless, and she was not in the attack range of Super Shinra Tensei, so she escaped the disaster. Ha ha ha! At this time, a crazy voice suddenly sounded. Following the source, Washu Matsushi, who usually looked elegant and warm, unexpectedly had a crazy smile. This was not the most important thing. His eyes, which originally belonged to human beings, had become the kaku eyes of ghouls at the moment. Hey, old fox, are you finally not going to hide? Dustless scornfully questioned. The fox will eventually show its tail. It was just a matter of time. Director, you are really a ghoul. Mado Akira was also shocked to stare at Washu Matsushi. The unique kaku eyes of ghouls, and the blood-red kagun behind, were obviously something that only ghouls had. Chapter 2036. Hee. As you can see. The gloomy laughter came out from Kazu Matsushi's throat. There was a strange smile on his mouth, and his terrifying eyes stared at Dustless and Mado Akira. This guy. Takatsuki-sen stared at Kazu Matsushi cautiously. The violent destructive breath was obviously not something that could be faked casually. I said before that CCG is just a place to hide the evil. The essence of V organization is CCG. Looking at the dull Mado Akira with pity, he pointed to the store manager Yoshimura Kozen on the other side and said, That old man, he had a deal with Kazu Matsushi a long time ago. In fact, your CCG director has a very famous name in V organization. Kasasako-san. Hee, you know very much. Hearing this, Kazu Matsushi also admitted frankly. Anyway, most of the ghouls' investigators were killed. Only the people who were not covered by Super Shinra Tensei were still alive, and he would kill them later. You took the initiative to release the state of ghouls. This situation is really rare, Kasasako-san. The store manager Yoshimura Kozen, who was bleeding, looked tired. He just fought with Takatsuki-sen, and he also worked hard. There were many scars on his body. Although they were father and daughter, Takatsuki-sen's attack was more ruthless than seeing her enemy. Hee. Kazu Matsushi just waved his hand and said, Kozen, we are old friends who have cooperated for many years. Why don't we work together to kill this group of people? In this way I can let bygones be bygones, you can still live safely in the future. No one in CCG will trouble you, including V organization. You know, we just want to keep a balance. But now this group of people in Aajai tree tore up this hard-won precious piece, so we can only destroy them. Kazu Matsushi said his chips, his eyes were shining. He seemed to be sure that Yoshimura Kozen would agree to his conditions. Balance. Takatsuki-sen's face showed a strong stunned color, looking at Kazu Matsushi blankly. Seeing the gloomy smile on his face, she felt a little depressed. The so-called balance. is actually very simple. Looking at the confused Takatsuki-sen, Dustless sorted out his thoughts and explained, if all the rats die, the cats will lose their jobs. If all the ghouls disappear, then does CCG still have the meaning to continue to exist? I see. Takatsuki-sen nodded suddenly. In a sense it was true. You're very smart. Looking at Dustless in surprise, Washimatsuri suddenly became interested. He rolled his eyes and couldn't help but say, how about this, if you join our V organization, your position in the future will definitely. What a joke. However, Dustless didn't give Washimatsuri a chance to continue his nonsense. He interrupted him and said disdainfully, idiot, haven't you heard of the saying that dragons don't live with snakes? You're courting death. Hearing this, Washimatsushi was furious. His whole body was covered with a burst of fiery red flowing light as he rushed over. Boom boom boom. The violent wind and waves were extremely violent. The flat ground was blown up with dust and smoke. More than 10 meters away, they could feel the violent breath of Washimatsuri. This guy. I didn't expect him to be a powerful SSS class ghoul. Takatsuki-sen was stunned. At this moment, she suddenly felt that the SSS class ghoul was becoming more and more worthless. Takatsuki-sen's father, Yoshimura Gyozen, was an SSS class ghoul. Arima Kisho's strength was also SSS class. At present, Washimatsuri's strength seemed to be SSS class. In fact, it was worth mentioning that there was a very abnormal character in CCG, Odo Nafuku. This person later played an overwhelming strength to crush Takatsuki's senator. He almost didn't have the power to fight back. His strength was far beyond the SSS class. Go to hell. Noticing that Dustless had not yet realized his existence, Washimatsuri suddenly disdainfully curled his mouth. A large number of Kagun on his back were like a big knife cutting towards Dustless. Still standing still, that's a SSS class ghoul. Do you think he is the same as the previous garbage? Seeing that Dustless was still standing still, everyone's hearts were in their throats. Some even believed that Dustless would die this time. Although Dustless's strength was SSS class, the opponent's strength was obviously SSS class, and Washimatsuri hid so deeply. Maybe his strength was more than SSS class. Damn guy. He actually looks down on me. Seeing that Dustless still kept calm, CCG's director Washimatsuri was angry and shouted, just an SSS class ghoul, don't be too self-righteous. It had to be said that as a member of the V organization, Washimatsuri did have the capital to be arrogant. For this huge organization, SSS class ghouls were nothing. Yoshimura Gyozen was an SSS class ghoul, but he was just a cleaner of the V organization. His daughter Takatsuki-sen was also an SSS class ghoul, but she was beaten by Odo Nafuku, who was a member of the V organization. It was worth mentioning that Arima Kisho was actually a member of the V organization, and his strength was also slightly stronger than Takatsuki Sr. This is such a big misunderstanding. Seeing that the Kagun was about to penetrate Dustless's head, Dustless suddenly turned his head. His cold voice blended into the void and finally passed into everyone's ears. I have never said that I am an SSS class ghoul. Chapter 2037. From the beginning to the end, Dustless had never admitted that he was an SSS class. Even the identity of ghoul had never been admitted. This was all pushed up by CCG. From the beginning to the end, Dustless had never admitted that he was an SSS class ghoul. No matter what you are, go to hell now. Washimatsuri flew into a rage out of humiliation. The Kagun on his back swarmed in from all directions and was about to pierce and crush Wuchin. The sharpness of the Kagun made people shudder. Grew. Not to mention other people, even Takatsuki-sen, who was an SSS class ghoul, also felt the power of lingering fear. An old fox like Washimatsuri who had been hiding for many years, and also had an extraordinary position in the V organization, how weak can he be? Puchi! 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 The saw-like Kagun penetrated Dustless's body and cut him into several halves. Useless thing. Seeing this, Washimatsuri disdainfully curled his lips. His face was full of ridicule, and he sneered, What SSS class ghoul, your strength is so weak, even Gongshan is not as good as you. I tried to win you over before. It's really a mistake. In the face of such an incredible scene, Everyone was somewhat overwhelmed. Everyone did not expect that Dustless would be killed so easily, and there was no room for him to fight back. Next, it's you. Washimatsuri looked at Takatsuki-san and others coldly. Even if the other party was an SSS class ghoul, he was not afraid. In this world, it was not that SSS class ghouls were invincible. What is your choice? Gongshan. Continue to cooperate with me, or go with them. The terrifying eyes fell on Gongshan's head. Washimatsuri asked coldly. Heaven and hell are between your thoughts, think twice before you act. It sounded very respectful to friends, but Washimatsuri's tone revealed endless threats. Obviously, as long as Gongshan chose to join Takatsuki-sen's side, he would kill him. However, the latter was just silent, the store manager just closed his eyes, and no one knew what he was thinking. If that's the case, then all of you can die together. Seeing that the store manager Yoshimura Gyozen was so unappreciative, Washimatsuri's eyes were full of anger. He stared at Takatsuki-san and Yoshimura Gyozen. When he was about to rush out at full speed, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his abdomen. Poochie! The horrifying sound of a body being cut into pieces suddenly came. After Washimatsuri was stunned, he asked in surprise, "Who was killed?" "It's you. You idiot!" Suddenly, the voice of the person who was supposed to be dead came from behind, and Washimatsuri broke out in a cold sweat. "You? Why didn't you die?" Washimatsuri hurriedly turned his head to take a look. What entered his eyes was a smiling Wu Chen. Damn it, when did they do it? Why don't I feel anything? Washimatsuri looked at the wound on his abdomen and his face twitched. When did they do it? Not only Washimatsuri was surprised, but even other people were stunned, staring at the scene in front of them inconceivably. Everyone's cheeks were full of puzzlement. One had to understand that this group of peerless experts, did not even see how Dustless attacked. You didn't die? Something is wrong. I obviously smashed your body. Why did you come back from the dead? Since when did ghouls have such incredible recovery power? Washimatsushi's pupils suddenly congealed, and his face was full of shock. He had just seen with his own eyes that Wu Chen was cut into 8 pieces, and the person who sent Wu Chen to his death was Washimatsushi himself. Now this guy came back from the dead. How could Washimatsuri not be surprised? Dead. Hearing this, Dustless only looked at Heshimatsuri with a face full of sympathy. He said coldly, "You want to kill me? Child, just how childish are you? Did you graduate from kindergarten? You're really stupid." To put it simply, it was just the element of glinting fruit. It was a pity that Washimatsuri was too stupid. He naively thought that he killed Dustless. It was ridiculous and ignorant. What did you say? Believe it or not, Washimatsushi's face turned ashen from Dustless's words, but he had nothing to say. What Dustless said was an out-and-out fact. It's best not to be too arrogant. While repairing the body, Washimatsuri delayed the time. The more arrogant people are, the faster they die. The recovery power of ghouls was quite amazing, especially Washimatsuri, who was one of the best. Is it? Dustless heard the words, and his face was cold. When he heard Washimatsuri's threatening tone, he suddenly wanted to kill him. He hated people who threatened him the most in his life. Especially now, Washimatsuri obviously, he caught the turtle in the jar, but he had to put on a confident look, which looked really disgusting and made people sick. Wasn't this asking for a beating? Obviously, the situation was extremely unfavorable to Washimatsuri, but this old guy still wanted to die. He deserved to be beaten. Not good, I angered him. Washimatsuri, who had been observing the change of Dustless's expression, saw the horrible face, covered with a layer of cold frost. Washimatsuri regretted, and then a dazzling light fell from the sky, crushing Washimatsuri's body in one fell swoop. Poochie! The ferocious knife was merciless. It cut through all the thistles and thorns and simply cut off Washimatsuri's right arm. His whole body was lying on the ground and rolling in pain. His ears were still reverberating with Wu Chen's scornful laughter. I want to ask, I'm arrogant, what can you do to me? Chapter 2038. Damn it, my hand. Washimatsushi cried bitterly, rolling like a madman. He was in great pain. In terms of the resilience of ghouls, especially powerful SSS ghouls like Washumatsushi, being cut off an arm will not affect their fighting power at all. Because if necessary, they can have another one. This kind of small thing is just a piece of cake. Hey, how do you feel? It's amazing, isn't it? Director Washumatsushi, why don't you grow another arm? The recovery ability of ghouls is very strong. Let me see your regeneration ability. Dustless stared at Washumatsushi with a deep face. His meaningful tone obviously had something to say. What does Dustless mean? Takatsuki-sen and the store manager Yoshimura Gakusen looked at Dustless with confusion, staring at the ferocious cheeks, and looking at the pain on Washumatsushi's face. They suddenly understood that this thing was more complicated than they thought. What did he do? Takatsuki-sen and Yoshimura Gakusen were confused, and then looked at Washumatsushi strangely. This guy waited for a long time, but he did not grow a new arm. Instead, because of the pain in a certain position, his cheeks were distorted and cold. Combined with the terrible eyes of ghouls, Washumatsushi was like a ghost. What the hell is that? Fire? After all, they were not ordinary people. Staring at the place where Washumatsushi's arm was cut off for a long time, the father and daughter understood why Washumatsushi was so painful. Looking carefully, the place where the arm was directly cut off by Dustless was burning with a small flame. Black flame? Yoshimura Gakusen was shocked. The black flame was like a willow branch, floating with the wind, and may be extinguished at any time. But what was intriguing was that even if Washumatsushi used his kagun to beat the black flame, he could not blow it out. Instead, his kagun would also be affected and burned with the black flame. This is Washumatsuri. Dustless actually used such a cruel trick on him. Takatsuki-sen suddenly understood. She had been Dustless's follower for a while. She knew that this was a trick called Amaterasu, and it could not be extinguished. If an ordinary person touched it, they would be affected. Damn it, this damned bastard. Washumatsushi cursed Wu Chen in his heart. He wanted to skin this guy alive. He glared at Wu Chen with hatred. Blood was already flowing out of his eyes. Washumatsushi knew that Wu Chen was torturing him on purpose. He wanted to be burned slowly by the Tensho. His life was worse than death. Wu Chen's actions were probably revenge for what happened just now. Tesese, you're already at this stage, yet you still have such a murderous expression? Dustless looked at the crazy Washumatsuri, feeling bored. He gradually lost interest in this guy. It's about time to send you on your way. Don't miss me in heaven. Don't even think about it. Hearing this, Washumatsushi's eyes regained the light of survival. If there was still a thought supporting Washumatsushi to accept the slow burning of Amaterasu, then it was to live. It was better to live than to die. Such a simple truth was known by the world. I can't give up. Looking at the burning flame on his body, Washumatsushi gritted his teeth. Like a storm cutting through the sky, he disappeared in an instant. The speed is really fast. I can only see a blurry afterimage. Looking up at the gradually disappearing Washumatsushi, Dustless lazily raised his right foot and said, "But, how fast is your speed? Can you be faster than light?" Light speed kick. The light with the majestic destructive power, like a long tail, automatically followed Washumatsushi, and approached Washumatsushi in an instant. Damn it! Feeling the dangerous fluctuation behind him, Washumatsushi turned his head and looked. The dazzling golden light swallowed his whole body. Boom boom boom. A deafening explosion suddenly rang out, and a mushroom cloud of boiling flames swept across the void. The blazing high temperature caused white steam to rise from the sky. As for Washumatsushi, he didn't even feel anything. He was evaporated by a kick. It was because he was too weak, so he was slaughtered on the spot without resistance. He didn't even feel the pain when he was kicked by Dustless. Mustard, the object of the transaction for many years, was slaughtered. Yoshimura Gakusen was somewhat sad. The whole face drooped. It seemed that he was remembering the death of Washumatsushi. Store manager, I suddenly feel the air is disgusting. Do you know why? Looking at Yoshimura Gakusen with a teasing face, Dustless's eyes narrowed into a crescent moon. It's because of your disgusting kindness. Ghouls were originally the incarnation of evil. The store manager Yoshimura Gakusen himself said that when ghouls were born, it meant that the beginning of evil had been pulled up, and if they wanted to live, they must eat humans. Therefore, every surviving perennial ghoul had human blood and fed on human flesh. Especially the SSS class store manager was one of the best. Izumi. His sight fell on Takatsuki-sen, who had a cold temperament. Dustless smiled very evilly, and said with a deep tone that was more terrible than the devil. "Kill him now, Izumi, remember not to let me down." Leaving such a sentence, Wu Chen left lazily. His twinkling eyes were brimming with brilliance, as if he was premeditated and planning a big event. As for whether Takatsuki-sen would kill Yoshimura Gakusen, Dustless did not have to worry about it. Izumi hated Yoshimura Gakusen very much, especially when she saw him live so freely. She was full of hatred for the store manager. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.